keep your computer away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, like that.
I'll call the meeting in order and welcome everybody to the May 13th, 2026 council meeting. Can I get a roll call, please?
Counselor Dowd, Counselor Fisher,
Here.
Counselor Leftridge,
Here?
Counselor Waterman,
Here.
Counselor Blank, Counselor Nunnally,
Here.
Counselor Walker,
Here.
Counselor Gabrielle, Mayor Hunter.
Here. We have one item on the work session agenda, fiscal year 2026-2027 budget review. And under that, we're tackling several topics: information technology, police department, fire emergency, medical services, and parks and recreation. Since we had a super late meeting last budget meeting on Monday evening and didn't get to public comment till the very end after 3.5 hours, I might try opening up for public comment at the beginning this evening, just so we don't torture anybody tonight. So I'll open it up to public comment. If you'd like to address the council on budget items or any other item, please step to the mic, state your name for the record, or raise your hand if you're online.
Good evening. My name's Tanea Pukta. I live on South Forest Lake Drive in Kalispell, and I'm here tonight representing an organization called Abort Ignorance Montana that was started here in the Flathead, and it works locally to promote a culture and a community that supports families. I was made aware that the council is considering adding funds as part of the budget for a safe haven baby box in the upcoming budget. So I'm here tonight to express that that me and the community members that are part of the organization that I represent are very much in favor of having a safe haven baby box in our community. Montana, you may have known that Montana has had a safe haven law since 2001. This law protects women who are experiencing a crisis pregnancy from being prosecuted if they abandon their child. So awareness of this law is not common, and what protections are provided by this law are also often misunderstood. So there are at least 7,000 babies each year that are abandoned by their mothers, and for a significant portion of those babies, that looks like a tragic abandonment, either on the side of the road or possibly in a dumpster. For example, in 2022, there was a baby found in a duffel bag at a fire station in November, and unfortunately, due to the elements, that baby froze to death. That woman was trying to do the right thing. She took the baby to a fire station, but there was no safe haven baby box there. So things like this happen because the mom believes that she's going to be prosecuted if she abandons her child. But the safe haven law provides protections for her, and a safe haven baby box would help bring awareness to this for our community. So if we were able to install that, we could educate law enforcement, healthcare professionals, and just the general public, including moms that are experiencing crisis pregnancies, that this is an option for them. So there's no question asked on the baby boxes. 911 is automatically dispatched when the baby's placed in there. It's temperature controlled. And then the child's taken to someone who can care for their needs. So these boxes would be a great way to show the members of our community that are our city council and other people in our community that we care about women who are going through things like this, crisis pregnancies, and that we also care about the children and the babies who are at risk for being abandoned. So I'm just here tonight to share that we are in favor of that. If that is in the being considered by the council for the budget, we would, as community members, help make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baraka.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for allowing us to make a statement this evening. My name is Jody Scollett. I live at 358 Bismarck Street here in Kalispell. And I also want to give my support for having a safe haven baby box. I agree with a lot of the points that Tanea made. Just the thought of a baby being abandoned just because someone's in crisis needing to make a quick decision and there's no options. it just breaks my heart to think of babies that could be saved and adopted to parents that want to adopt children. And one of the things that I love about the Safe Haven baby boxes is that it's completely anonymous. So no information is required from the person surrendering their baby. They can't be criminally prosecuted under the Safe Haven law. And there's no fear of judgment or recognition. You know, it's a very safe place. It's not like they're going in talking to someone that may recognize them. You know, fear of their story being told somewhere they don't want it to be told. And so another point in thinking about the stories of babies being abandoned that aren't saved is that having a Safe Haven baby box would help reduce infant mortality. That's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I've spoke to you before about this. I won't harp on it. I have a little bit of update. One is that the cost of the Safe Haven baby box has gone up a little bit. It's about $25,000 to once you get it installed. I thought it was about $20,000 when I first brought it up. So I apologize for that. Inflation has got something to do with that, I suspect. Anyway, the other thing is I brought you a couple of articles. One of them I wrote. It's about viability of a newborn, of a in the womb newborn. And I gave it to your lady over there, and she'll pass it around to you. I encourage you to read it. Viability has nothing to do with stage of development. And that is a sad, sad story. Anyway, I will shut up and let you do your thing. But Robin Sertel, which may be on Zoom tonight, maybe because I told her 6:30 instead of 6. So maybe she's here and maybe she isn't. She will have a better handle on the actual cost of a Safe Haven baby box. And you've already heard me several times, so I won't harp on you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening to all the members of the City Council. My name is Rosie Apple Skane. I live at 147 Turnberry Terrace in Columbia Falls, and I am also in support of this Safe Haven baby box. The baby box is safe and it's tangible, something that people can see and remember and share with their friends. It's uncomplicated, and it's life-protecting alternative during a really stressful and potentially dangerous situation for the baby and the parents. And the quicker and the easier the baby is transferred and surrendered, the more the parents will use the baby box. And they don't want to be exposed, and that's a huge part of it. None of us would want to be exposed with that. The law makes it more complicated, and there's quite a bit more process, but that people will remember the box more, and they see it and they pass on the information on to others. It's anonymous, like Jody has spoken, and it's safe for the babies and families in a very stressful situation and crisis. And I know that when people are frightened and stressed, they can't think clearly, and this gives them really safe options. And I know that you've experienced it. We've all experienced times when we've been really stressed and in fear, and we can't think clearly. And being overloaded with fear, it prevents them from thinking clearly. And these are making great options for our communities to make them safe. So I appreciate you evaluating it, and I was actually thrilled that in today's crazy upside down world, that something that is so tremendously good that you're considering. So thank you. It's just a tremendous thing for all the communities. I thank each one of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for your service to our community. I'm going to change the subject. Thank you for taking our comments early. It's much appreciated. My name is Vanessa Saravolo. I live at 770 North Main Street here in Kalispell. I've lived in Kalispell since I was a girl, since 1975. I had a couple leaves of absences to attend university, the law school, and serve in the United States Army. I've lived on North Main Street in September. It'll be 29 years. I don't know where the time went, but it's gone. And I've been a taxpayer, for the most part, for 40 years. I'm here to speak regarding the letter I sent to Mayor Hunter and all of you in January of this year. I brought some extra copies with me in case you haven't had an opportunity to review that this evening. And I'm here to address it because Parks and Rec is on the budget, and I was informed by Mr. Nygren, I believe it is, Nygren, that tonight was the night to be here to address all of you. So thank you for this opportunity. Our green spaces, as we know, are vital community assets, vital to the community, and they are being heavily used at this point in time. Lawrence Park was an unknown park when I first moved in to my North Main Street home and walked my dog oftentimes as a sole occupant of that park and was able to enjoy the river corridor and very rarely had any encounters with off-leash dogs. That has changed so dramatically that it is rare occasion now that I walk my dog in Lawrence Park. My letter addresses the fact that I've been charged by off-leash dogs. I'm training my dog not to be leash reactive. At 5 years, she's almost there. But it's, as far as I know, the Kalispell Municipal Code requires all pets to be leashed in all of our city parks, I think with the exception of Begg Park, which is a dog park. And if people want to let their dogs run freely there, they may. But it's a standard we need to hold all citizens to. And unfortunately, it seems to me we have a gap between our established ordinances and the reality on the ground. I'm asking you to prioritize with more consistent enforcement and or maybe a significantly more robust public educational outreach. On April 29th, when our winter and spring publication came out, I noticed on page 12 that they did take the time to show the general park use information, and they begin with the leash requirement. I just hope the habitual offenders have an opportunity to read that. I'm asking that we work together as a community to ensure the rules are respected. It's to make the park accessible to everyone. I've gotten older over the years. I sometimes have to walk with a cane, even with my 80-pound dog. And I'm not as mobile as I am. And when I have dogs charging me and I'm trying to hold an 80-pound dog, it can become a little challenging for me. I have, on rare occasion, but I haven't been down there much since January, I have to admit. I'm afraid to walk in my own neighborhood park, even with bear spray, which I have on one occasion accidentally discharged because my dog triggered it. And fortunately, no one, nor the dogs, got sprayed. I have seen animal control visit the park. Certainly after my letter was received, I saw it a little bit more frequently going through the neighborhood and driving through the park. But I never witnessed the agent get out of her vehicle. And on one occasion when I was there were dogs running loose, and the officer stayed in her vehicle, or his vehicle. And that concerned me because there were dogs off leash right then and there, and they weren't even spoken to. I don't know what kind of citations are being issued. I haven't done that research, but that would be interesting to know. So after 40 years of supporting our community, working here, living here, raising a child, and now supporting the raising of grandchildren in Kalispell, I want to ensure that all residents can safely use our city parks. I don't think this is an issue solely in Lawrence Park, from what I understand. I know there was a terrible incident at one of the school grounds this winter where a woman was attacked and took several stitches, I believe, to one of her arms. But our tax dollars maintain the park, and I would like to know as a taxpayer that my tax dollars are keeping me safe if I want to take a stroll in my neighborhood park. But it requires all of us to uphold those standards to ensure that the safety of all of us when we're using the park continues. I know when I have addressed people with dogs off park, as I indicated in my letter, I've been yelled at, I've been berated, and at times felt afraid of the owner of the dog. And I just carry bear spray. I haven't had to deploy it intentionally yet. You've got my letter. I'll look forward to your response to my written comments, and thank you for this opportunity to visit with you tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It's a privilege to be able to get to come and speak to you. I'll be really brief. I'm here as a mom, a grandmother, and a member of this community. And I just recently heard about the Safe Haven baby boxes. I've known about them in other places around the country. And when I first heard the idea, I thought that is brilliant. It's a brilliant way to help a mom who is feeling distressed, not to just abandon her child anywhere. And what a great thing for the child who is treated humanely. And so the safety boxes just provide security and safety and anonymity for the moms. So that encourages them to use them and to provide that child a safe place to be taken over by someone who truly would love to raise the child. So I'm not here to give you a speech. I didn't prepare anything. I just wanted to come and let my voice be heard that I think the community would really love this idea. It just solves so many problems and creates a safe place for a new little life to be handed over. And so thank you so much for letting us come and share our thoughts.
Thank you. Oh, did we get your name, ma'am?
You did not. I told you I wasn't prepared. Didn't prepare a speech. But my name is Margie Ahrens. I live at 1736 Ashley Lake Road in Kalispell.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Batey. I live at 885 North Main Street in Kalispell, right next to Lawrence Park. My husband and I have lived there for 15 years. And I'm here to talk about two issues real quick. I wanted to support Vanessa as her neighbor, and also I don't have a dog, but I have been run into by off-leash dogs, which caused severe pain in my knee and had to go and see physical therapy 10 years ago just by an enthusiastic dog. So it is an issue down there. And the other thing I want to speak with you about is about the trees down in Lawrence Park. I was a a Christmas tree farmer. I raised my sons on a Christmas tree farm for over a decade in Washington State. And I have a certain love for a lot of trees, and so I pay a lot of attention to things. I'm also a retired school teacher, high school special ed in Columbia Falls, and I taught class on tree identification and issues regarding the health of trees. So, but in no way am I an arborist. But the trees down in Lawrence Park, I noticed last year that there was some girdling happening on the trees, and so I approached the Parks and Rec Department person in the office last year, and he enlightened me that several years back, there was an issue with the trees being girdled by a steel trimmer. And so, and it damaged quite a few of the trees, and some of them survived and some of them did not. But what the issue is, when girdling happens, it destroys the tree's ability to send up the nutrients. It lets them be more accessible to pesticides, diseases, pests, and whatnot. And once all of the trees cannot create any more bark down at their base. And as a tree farmer, I know that. And there's no reason why we can't possibly let just the grass grow. But I've taken pictures, and I sent each of you an email about it. And I've taken pictures this Monday right after the nice gentleman who mows down there. He does a great job mowing, but he nicks those trees. And each time it's nicked, they can't grow it back. And I did it the last week as well on the 4th of May, and I sent those pictures as well. And so they're constantly being nicked, and because he wants them to look nice. So I'm asking some of those trees are memorial trees as well, and some of them have died. I have a friend who's lost their daughter, an infant and unborn child, to somebody in the community here several years ago, and she planted a tree, and the covering around the tree was taken away this last spring because it's now big enough to withstand certain things, but it's already got a nick. And it's just a matter of time before more nicks and more nicks and more nicks. And her memorial of her daughter and unborn grandchild will be gone. And people down there love those trees. That we have a lovely selection of trees down there, and it's a beautiful park. But there should be possibly, and I don't like the word should, I always tell my husband, don't tell me should, but there might be a way to keep those trees from being girdled. Is there training that can be set aside to teach the lawnmower people on how to do it effectively, to make it look as nice, but don't damage the trees? Is there maybe bark that can be put around each of the trees? That's really expensive to do that, and I realize that. But maybe there is some education about it's really okay to let the grass grow around the trees. It's not going to hurt the trees at all. In fact, it'll save them, and it'll still look as nice. So anyway, I'm just here. I hope you take the time to look at the email I sent you and the pictures, and I'll keep taking those pictures because it's data. I like data a lot. I took a lot of observational data. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate you here. So.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joy Hunter, and I live in Columbia Falls, and I'm in support here, supporting the baby box. I've seen it in other places. It's effective, it's humane, and honestly, 20 or whatever, 20,000, 25, that's a baby's life is priceless. And every baby and every mom needs to be served in this community in a humane way. At best, when you have the support of family and, husband and whatever, you bring a single mom into the mix, and it gets tough. And decisions are made that aren't good sometimes. So I just really am in favor of this. I've heard people talk about it and that they would use it. It would be a good option in a very tough time. So I just appreciate all of you that there's a place where we can get things taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Appreciate what you folks do. You have a lot of budget priorities, and balancing the budget is a struggle. So I appreciate what you do. My name is Terry Falk. I've called Kalispell home since 1979. Do not live in the city limits. I'm a taxpayer, but there's a lot of good things happening in Kalispell, and I'm here to talk about the baby box. And I kind of like the conversation that came up earlier about trees, too. I think trees are amazing, and you think about how long it takes to grow a tree. So I echo that. In the area of baby box, I know you have a lot of budget priorities. I can't think of one maybe more intrinsically valued than the baby box idea. And I know that you guys understand and value. Most of you probably have kids. I've watched a couple kids born in my life and grandkids, and wow, the preciousness of and the vulnerability of a baby is, as you know, really priceless. So I hope you can find some room in your budget for that. When I think about the value of a baby, I think about couples who are not able to have kids and desperately want kids. And you think about what they would pay, how would they establish the value of that for the opportunity to hold a baby and to be in charge and responsible for a baby. Obviously, not everybody thinks like that. I mean, there's some people who are stressed out by a baby, and it's there's stress that goes with it too. So to be able to help both baby and a mother under stress, I think is a prime opportunity. I hope you can place some priority on it. Hope this is something that you can fit into your budget. Yeah. So what is the value of a human life? I can't think of a better place or opportunity or process for a baby to be placed in some sort of safe environment. You guys have this opportunity, I think, and it's unique to you. So I hope you're able to find that and agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Tony Robinson. I live at 2668 East Edgewood, actually in Whitefish, but I have a vested interest in the baby box issue. I am on Monday going to acquire a new grandson by adoption. He's a year old, and my daughter and her husband have been fostering him for several months. So it's a joyous and incredibly wonderful situation. And I'm comparing this to the statistics that I have seen. These are courtesy of the National Safe Haven Alliance, which is a national organization that fosters baby boxes and helps people how to have conversations around. They actually have a hotline for distressed parents or parents-to-be that helps those people come to good conclusions about what should happen when their baby is born. But the statistics from 1999, according to the National Safe Haven Alliance, are 524 babies relinquished into baby box type destinations. That's a low figure because not all of them obviously are tracked, but in contrast to that, at least 1,600 abandonments have happened. Of those, the babies who have survived that have been found and brought to a good life are 608. The babies who have unfortunately, tragically died have been 915. Those are again low estimates. The baby boxes give, and they're abandoned in dumpsters on the street, in boxes. One I read about was abandoned in Alaska on a street corner in a box. And that one, incredibly, was saved. So, but it's a matter of suffering and often ends in tragedy when the babies are abandoned. Baby boxes give troubled and stressed, overwhelmed parents an out that protects the baby and gives them anonymity so that they don't have to face legal consequences or whatever. But how wonderful if our area could be a deciding factor in bringing about a joyous adoption story like I have, instead of, and that a baby is loved and given life and good things rather than the tragic alternative of suffering and death. Thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Okay, could the person online please address the council?
Thank you, Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hear us tonight. My name is Robin Sertel, and for the record, I am from Montanans for Life. I am not currently a Kalispell resident, but I can tell you up until June of 2020, I lived happily at 52 Grandview and had a wonderful view of the Buffalo Hill Golf Course there. So always have a special place in my heart. I currently live down in the Bitterroot. But I'm speaking to you tonight in support of the baby boxes, and I come to hopefully bring you some additional information. Our organization has been working very diligently with the legislature and with firehouses across the state to help get these life-saving devices put in. So we are obviously in support. You've heard the statistics and the testimonies of those who are in support, so I won't rehash that for you. But to echo what Russell Sias had brought up during his testimony, as he's brought you a lot of information about this, that yes, the cost has gone up due to inflation. We are currently working with Chief Keating in Missoula to put a safe haven baby box in Fire Station 1 on Pine Street. And initially, the cost, including the installation, was $20,000, and that has gone up. We are looking currently more in the $25,000 range. However, it's early days yet, and it's dependent upon the structure of the firehouse and the needs that the installation would bring in. So every building is different. You know, if you've got a firehouse that's pole barn construction, it's going to be very different than one that's all masonry, and I'm sure you can understand that the construction costs would be different with each one. I also want to offer that we worked with a legislator during this past legislative session to develop a grant program. And again, inflation has gone a little nuts since we started this, but we do have grants available through DPHS for up to $20,000 per newborn safety device. So that may be something that you consider. And that information is available in, it's right in the MCA, Montana Code Annotated 40-6-408 will give you some more information about that. And all of the MCA 40-6 is about the safe haven law, and the safe haven baby boxes are in there. And so I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have, but I want to tell you that these have saved hundreds of lives, and they are something that people support across the board. Doesn't matter your political or religious affiliation, these poll at about 90% support all the way around. So people are very supportive of these. And again, what is the value of a life? Most of the fire departments that we've worked with have been very eager. It fits right in with the model of protecting and serving for the, all police, fire, and ambulance. They're given all the training that is needed to take care of the child and then step the child through the next steps in the process. So there are no gaps there in the procedure. And they're also given the materials. So when a Safe Haven baby box is installed, the fire hall is, again, trained. All the first responders are brought up to speed onto what to do when a baby is placed. And then they are also given, all the medical equipment, a bassinet, everything that would be needed for that baby. And then the baby is eventually brought right over to the hospital to be given a full medical examination and then is fast-tracked through the foster to adopt program. And so if you have any other questions, I'll hang out. If you need any further information, I'd be happy to provide that for you. Thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, seeing no further public comment, turn it over to Mr. Nygren for staff report.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, continuing from Monday night, we'll just dive right into the budget here with the internal service fund, information technology. For those not familiar, an internal service fund, in this case, information technology. It's similar to the central garage, which we went over Monday night, which is really, it's goods and services from one department to another. So with that, we've got it up on the screen. I'm gonna get rid of this just so the viewing audience could see. Got Erica here, the director of IT, and just kind of scroll through the budget, starting with beginning cash, revenues. Not a whole lot is changed here. And we'll also go through some of the highlights of some capital projects going into this year. But yeah, if you want to jump in there, if there is anything.
Hello, Mayor and Council. To begin, there's roughly 40 endpoints that will be replaced that are known. However, that number certainly will increase throughout the year. We have a strict process of deploying new computers to certain staff in offices and then repurposing computers out of those used computers in various other staff areas throughout the departments and all of our buildings. Our core security camera system is going to be replaced for our main downtown network building. There's some more security camera replacement for the network repository at another building, and we'll be actually setting up a whole new IT structure at our new Ashley Creek Park. The network requirements there will be used for security cameras, network connectivity for access control, connectivity between the buildings. And there's actually even network access that is needed for, say, the lift station, and so we'll have internet connectivity down there. The security cameras at that site would then be retrieved from the camera systems downtown. Electronic time cards is a big project for our police department. In this year, we're wrapping up on that, but that's going to move into the fire department next year. And the component of that integrates with our existing payroll system is their timesheet program that they run with their schedule already within their program, and it's essentially exported and imported into our time card system, which is a lot better process than the paper timesheets. You can imagine the time-consuming process that takes to our staff right now. Our CityWorks application, which you may know or not know a lot about, but that is our asset management for public works, our work orders, and that can be with water lines, sewer assets, and also our permitting through public works and development services.
So the construction permitting process, we use it for internal staff, engineering projects, pre-treatment. It's a wide variety of the permitting for the city, and that is a huge migration will happen going to a cloud-hosted Trimble program. This is the application that all of our all of our field crews use the iPads for, to be able to integrate with the maps.
What kind of timeline do you have projected on that migration?
The migration, we will get into like a sandbox site in the early fall and work on training off of that sandbox site and migrate with the goal to complete before budget season starts and our field crews gets busy in the winter. So fall 2026 through like December, January, we have a lot riding on that. And also the reports, anything we print from that CityWorks application, certificate of occupancy or inspection reports, anything like that has to be reconverted from the existing report writer from CityWorks into a new report writer. So
Is there a line item for that migration here, or?
The reports are actually,
The whole migration.
oh, that is a line item that's split between Public Works, Development Services, and IT. Specifically, three, five is a portion of it, I believe. Let me keep going with that and I'll get right back to you. Accessibility to our city website is going to be a project that we're working on, and it's actually with the accessibility compliance standard requirements with PDFs and other documents that we have on the website. We will also be working on populating the new IT closet and reworking the existing IT closet that's happening over at the Public Safety Building. They're two very, very small closets that are essentially back to back with the cable pathway between the two closets. And then we continue the effort of replacing a lot of acid batteries with lithium ion batteries that are aged and ready to replace. Is there any questions that you had with the rest of the budget?
Have we completed the phone system upgrade, or am I still seeing that there's still Centrex lines on there?
We still have, actually, some of our phone charges still come into the phones line item. So we have voice carrier charges, and to me, since we have a line item that says phones, the voice carrier charges should go into that line item, so it's just kind of where it's funded from. We do have a handful of lines that are still at various sites where we do not ever intend on changing it. Then there's some that we're just kind of, like the pool, there's a couple phones down there that up until 2 months ago, we had very, very low internet bandwidth down there. So I wasn't gonna change any of the phone lines. And now we're kind of at the point where we're trying to figure out the best solution for phone lines in a couple places, but there's one phone that's yet to be cut over, and it's the phone that's in the police department public safety lobby.
Okay.
And there's a little looking payphone in my office that is waiting to be put in, and working on that, but that's the last one.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on IT? I just had a question about the Ashley Creek Park. Obviously, the donor is paying for so much of that, but since it's in our budget, the IT stuff, the security cameras and that sort of thing is on us in terms of expense.
I'm actually mentioning it because it's the IT time more than like the cost of it, because the security camera system, the access control system, The network switches that go down there, the fiber configuration, all of that is work that IT will do and administer. So some of this is mentioned out of awareness of IT. We have projects that we do, and the funding doesn't always come from, say, the IT budget, but when you think about the staff time, that's really kind of some of the highlights in the integration back into the existing systems that we have that IT uses. That will be a factor. But like the internet connectivity down there, that is going to be paid from city IT. The actual cost of the security cameras that go in initially, not coming from the city.
Okay.
And of course, that's all approved through the funding sources.
Yeah, no, it's just more thank you to the Bibler Foundation for everything they're doing on that park, and certainly sharing a little bit of the cost there is something we could do.
Yeah, obviously just trying to get ahead of it a bit, but knowing that there's certainly going to be some more agreements and things like that that come down the line in regards to the maintenance, especially on the park side, but just knowing that even as we get into design, we could see what's coming, so.
Yeah, no, smart to plan ahead, and very thankful to the Bibler Foundation for all that they're doing down there. Yeah.
Sorry, I did see one other thing that I'd forgotten about. Website and social media. Are we doing a bigger project with that? Is that why we're seeing a increase on that line item?
That's where the accessibility
Okay.
project is being funded from, and then our next request, which is like the public request, that kind of funding comes out of that line item. And then the traditional social media archive and their website hosting.
Okay, thank you.
And the next request was in the city clerk's budget last year. We moved it over to IT.
Okay.
And that's the FOIA requests that come in from the public, that's what the next is.
Okay.
What's next?
I would just like to point out that I did not give the IT people a hard time this year for the first time ever, so you're welcome.
All right, we're gonna be jumping around through a couple of funds here in the police department. We are gonna move on to KPD. Once again, we got the chief down there at the end, but we'll just start here. Salaries and payroll costs, as you can see, that's the main item, you know, just with the market adjustment that's gone up. But, you know, other than that, not a lot of huge changes when you look at M&O. We can just kind of take a glance at them and let me know if you see anything that jumps out.
I'll just make the point about the gas. We spoke about this Monday night, but just the expectation or, you know, some predictions about where gas is going with regards to the international situation. I understand that we use kind of a predictive agency that we reference in preparing gas estimates, and I just would ask that we update that before the August final numbers in case that changes between now and August.
Sure, okay.
As you can see, 2 patrol vehicles in the budget. The chief may be able to expand. There was a question from a council member about whether they are, I guess, what's the term, KPD vehicles. You know, there's often times where departments maybe buy the cheaper vehicles and they don't have the longer term maintenance, but the vehicles that Kalispell does purchase are the upgrades for the demands that they need, so.
Do we have any undercover vehicles? non-marked?
We have detective vehicles that are unmarked. We don't, and then we have undercover task force agents that use unmarks.
But we don't have any kind of traffic control, unmarked?
We don't. We are ordering vehicles right now that are fully marked, but they have slick top lights. So more, the lights are more in the windshield than on the top, but they're fully marked vehicles still on patrol. The only true unmarked we have are with undercover detective vehicles.
Thank you.
The narrative report says 3 new updated emergency response vehicles. Is it just 2?
There should be 1 in the levy.
Yeah, there's 1 in the levy.
And 2 in the general fund.
Great, thanks.
Yes.
So this is also where I'd like to highlight a change that was been talked about a bit, which also does tie into kind of the code enforcement discussion. Special service officer, at this point in time, that's actually the animal warden position. I will say that the animal warden position has a broad breadth of duties that include code enforcement, parking enforcement, amongst other things. So down here, parking services, well, you could see 2 FTEs. One of those FTEs recently retired, Dave, the gentleman that drove around chalking tires. So kind of moving forward with, direction from council, certainly we see an opportunity here with kind of moving on from, I guess, old chalking material and the technology. You could see parking enforcement material and software, which we could get into a budget of $70,000. What that does is it's basically software that would allow a patrol vehicle just to buy it, essentially just driving around, that'll geocode parking to the space and do the enforcement. That way it'll be much more efficient as it was for Dave to do the rounds, essentially only about 2 rounds a day. For really what you were getting is about 4-hour parking is what it was. And I think that kind of contributed to a lot of the complaints about the rocking and rolling and stuff because it was pretty easy to avoid the enforcement. Certainly moving to parking enforcement software would allow the city the ability to enforce much easier the 2 hours that is out there, as well as likely free up time for additional enforcement opportunities, especially given, the special service officer kind of designation as some of those duties aligning with the potential realignment of kind of the parking enforcement component, knowing that, it could also cover some of the general code enforcement things, cleaning of the sidewalks from snow, the park hours, the park ordinances, which had been mentioned, as well as some of the parking. So we really do see the opportunity here without having to hire necessarily an FTE, just with some new technology and the shifting of some of the duties within the police department, the ability to do some additional code enforcement with that as well. Because we have been tracking since the last year. Going back to last year, you may recall the council kind of wanted us to keep track. We've done that and do project, just based off of kind of our existing enforcement load between Public Works and planning. This doesn't include the whole breadth of the chain as far as up to the city's attorney's office and everything that goes along with it, but probably about a half a FTE. And that is not proactive enforcement. That's just reactionary to complaints. I will add that as well. So don't necessarily, at least as of now, I think there is the ability to do a full-time FTE, but our numbers don't show that. So I do feel like with the technology and these 2 positions here, kind of shifting around the duties, having the ability to do a little bit more with that. Although, like I said, there is an initial cost of this parking enforcement software of $70,000, and there is an ongoing cost moving forward on that, which was 8 or 10, I believe is what it was.
Yeah, similar to our current parking software.
So happy to have a discussion on this one as well.
Can you tell me more about the software? Facial recognition, tracking, is there?
No. So LPR, think of it as digital chalk. So what it does, it's not connected to a criminal justice network. It's not alerting us of any information that's not viewable to the public. So right now we have a parking officer with a camera on that can drive down the road, see a license plate, chalk it, make very manual notes of where those vehicles are. This just does it digitally and automatically. So it doesn't give us any identifiable information of the owners. It's not linked to any criminal justice system. It's a triangulation of 3 cameras. So that the 70,000 for software, that's actually software and the actual hardware purchase of the cameras. As it drives by, it triangulates the vehicle position next to a curb, a plate number, a color of a vehicle to identify it. Eventually, if we have 2 of those, a second vehicle could drive by. Those systems are linked. It would alert that officer that that is a whatever violation we had put into the system at that point, where they can handle that violation much more efficiently and with a lot less manpower needed to address those issues.
Who's the manufacturer?
The camera system is, I guess, this is expensive enough, so it would have to go through a procurement process. What we have as examples right now is a Genetec LPR system, which is used throughout Montana, and the software system, I believe, is called Passport.
And so that data doesn't, that data doesn't go out into the cloud, say? It's not
It
like
is cloud stored.
But it's not like a flock camera where it's available?
It is not.
Okay.
Nope.
And the hardware is installed in one of the patrol vehicles generally parked down here at the station?
It won't be on patrol vehicles. It will be on specific vehicles for these employees, yes.
Because I know one of the challenges about Dave's enforcement is the time it takes him to go from the central garage to getting to downtown. And that's part of the reason he only is able to do 2 loops really in a day is that travel time, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I know that as we're going to be having some work sessions here coming up on parking specifically. One of the things we were thinking about is, do we still need, or do we still want the 2-hour parking downtown? I don't need an answer tonight, but for those meetings, I would like to know if we didn't do the 2-hour parking, what is the load on the traffic enforcement reduced by, in like a general swag? Because it sounds like the 2-hour parking downtown is requiring the majority of the time of our parking enforcement people.
That's correct. I will say also what this software does, it's very amendable. So depending on what council does or doesn't do, whether it's 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking, 30-minute parking, it can be changed very easily. It could get to the point as well where, with a barcode, essentially you could track the parking very easily. You wouldn't even need to do meters in the future. So with the software, once you have the hardware, it's very easy to use this technology to do a number of things. But at this point, we have 2-hour parking. And even any proposals don't remove 2-hour parking to the extent that there wouldn't be parking enforcement per se. I would say, once again, there is, if you were to go back to the general fund budget, fines and forfeitures. So there is, fines that come along with it that help offset any of the costs that would go along with this. Not saying it's supposed to be necessarily revenue neutral or anything along those lines, but regardless, even if the council were to go, say, 2-hour parking, 3-hour parking, parking for the day, this software would allow us to change and amend to that much easier. But yeah, like I said, as of now, there's no proposal to remove all the 2-hour parking, so.
There will be.
I would also add that this software is what manages the entire permit system for parking. So any city-owned lots or any permitted lots become digital permits that are also ran through the LPR. So instead of a placard, permits would be utilized by vehicles, pull into the lot, the LPR vehicle can run through, it notifies of any plate that is not geolocated to that lot, and it would notify us of that versus actual visible placards hanging. And as Jared said, the Passport software specifically is so flexible that any adjustments council may wish to make, whether it's elimination of certain rules or adding them, the software can handle those changes easily.
And I would add too that there's parking requirements actually all over the city that we actually get complaints about as well. The 72-hour parking, And with the geocode, it's much easier to triangulate that car and whether or not it has moved or not. So that's often something when it gets to code enforcement, you know, we got public comment on it, I believe today, that just cars being parked in a boulevard, not moving for a period of time, it makes it much easier to enforce that as well.
Is it flexible enough to do that different pricing in the same place in the same day?
It is, so it can actually do market-based pricing based off of traffic counts in summer months or winter months. It's,
That's cool.
it can do a ton.
And this has been implemented in other communities that we know it's software that's reliable.
Yeah, throughout Montana specifically, I know the pairing of Genetec LPR and Passport is used in several cities.
And the parking lot enforcement, I just note that if somebody backed into their space, may not work if it's license plate identified.
Yeah, so you would probably want signage or some restriction on that they must have their plate displayed in the lots.
Good point. So just for clarification here, so what we're talking about is combination of a number of duties into one FTE, which is parking enforcement, animal warden, compliance officer, and maybe kind of a parks, almost like a parks ranger, where it's kind of like visiting parks and kind of enforcing park rules.
Just, yeah, parks ordinances, you know, like dogs off the leash, which is what the animal warden would do even now. But it just takes, you know, some of that burden off of a patrol officer as well, especially if you had two of them and they have the ability to move around a little easier. Like I said, at this point, one of them, 100% of their time is just parking enforcement. And even in that, it's limited enforcement based off of the methodology we use. Like I said, essentially, even though it's been 2-hour parking, it's 4-hour parking. It's essentially 2 rounds a day is all you were getting in order to basically going around and doing that. And I will say as well, it's going to be very difficult, even in that case, to get another Dave. So.
Else on that topic?
And once again, even though it's in the budget, it would have to come before council as part, because we would have to put it out due to the cost and all that, so there could be future discussion about whoever was to whatever groups would apply and whatever recommendation council would have. Ultimately, it's going to have to be awarded essentially by the council, because it does have to go through the procurement in order to do that. So, which would be following any parking discussions coming up. All right. Let me just, let's see here. And go ahead. I'm gonna go to the emergency responder levy. We'll just do KPD at this point. So you have, sorry, here we go. This is the other patrol vehicle here. Any questions there? Detectives and crime analyst. Not, we'll come back to this for fire, but we'll go to the Stone Garden grant. Jordan, do you want to explain what these are for some of the?
Yeah, so the Stone Garden grant typically covers equipment purchases as well as overtime for drug-related operations because we are within certain miles to a border. We qualify for those. You'll see those funds used mostly in conjunction with a drug task force doing some sort of interdiction. We use that overtime. And then an equipment grant that goes from anything to radios to some sort of equipment update that we do annually. The drug enforcement grant, the next one, that is just overtime through HIDA, which is connected to the Drug Task Force as well. The DUI grant is a full-time FTE funded position through the state. I believe it's a pass-through grant through NHTSA that they fund both a full employee for DUI enforcement as well as overtime. That overtime would be something we utilize a lot for Friday night traffic issues. We may use overtime through this traffic overtime fund, grant fund to help with that. Let's see here. Our other grant funds, we have our Bulletproof Vest partnerships, which is a cost share for any ballistic vest we purchase. The JAG grant we typically also use for radios. Our radios will continue to transition to 800 megahertz radios, which is a lot more building penetration, a lot more reliable for us when we have issues. Fire has issues in Target or Costco and those big cinder block buildings. We really struggle with radios. We have a switch to 800 that is already happening, and it just will require all of our radios to upgrade to that. And we're the majority of the way through with the police department of transitioning those radios. We have additional STEP funding for overtime of another $20,000 for traffic enforcement. We have task force vehicle grant. It's really trying to think of it's a reimbursement for an undercover vehicle. They pay up to $12,000 a year back to us for any costs we have for those undercover vehicles. Forfeiture funds are in there. We have about $8,000 from a seizure. That would be something that we would typically utilize for mental health support or some sort of support for officers that they don't get in the general budget. Roundup for Safety, Walmart grants, we have line items for any of those that come available as well. Then our opioid settlement, that is our cost share with the county on our crisis assistance team.
Which is the director that will be coming and doing a community report here in the coming weeks.
That's, looks like 10,000 less than last, looks like it's been declining. Is that, in terms of revenues, is that a
Well,
declining?
it's proposed already. It's, the actual may end up, you could see even the actual last year, but it'll likely come in. We're just estimating based off of that. You could see the actual in 24 was 28, so we're estimating 35. It may come in a bit higher, but we try not to overdo it.
Yeah.
And it's set, so we don't have a lot of control over that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that gets us through all of KPD unless there's some other questions on that.
Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Honor. So I have just a question for Chief. Is the movement from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 for cannabis, does that have any kind of budgetary impact to us, pro or con?
No, I don't foresee that.
Okay.
No.
And then I'm going to get back to my favorite question every year about our police drone.
Drone, you said?
I'm sorry?
Drones, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know that we were awarded a drone from Flathead Electric, I think, a few years back.
Yes.
And I did a lot of digging into it at that time. I know it can't be used without a warrant, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. What is the ongoing maintenance and training cost for that?
Very minimal.
Okay.
Ongoing maintenance, and then training. It's essentially people learning how to play a video game. Honestly, that's what they get good at, using the controller and looking at a screen and notifying other officers what they see. The drone that you're talking, so we don't currently have any drones that respond with patrol. ours are all SWAT crisis-based, so they're interior drones, so there's different restrictions on whether they need warrants or not, because they typically operate under exigency, because they're critical incidents that we use them in. But yeah, there's not a significant, drones are getting cheaper, and the maintenance isn't significant.
All right, thanks.
I do have a question. You brought up SRT SWAT stuff. Do we have a MOU agreement with the county yet on the SWAT team?
So we don't have an MOU. We do have a shared policy agreement that we've signed with the sheriff and all the chiefs that are involved.
Okay.
Not specifically an MOU.
Okay.
At this time.
All right. Anything else? Fire. So again, we'll work through the general fund, get down to ambulance, or actually we'll probably go general fund, levy, then work through some of the other special revenue funds. I will actually start. I'm gonna move to a presentation here that the chief is gonna do. Maybe. Do you need your notes over here? No. Okay.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members, City Manager Nygren. Thank you for the opportunity to address you on the 26-27 Fire Department budget proposal. It's an exciting time in the fire department, not only as we are seeing some of the benefits, the initial benefits of the additional levy staffing, but we're moving ahead in a few other areas as well. My goal with this short presentation tonight is to cover a few of the budget highlights and point out some items that will probably be new to those of you that have been looking at this budget for many years. Just as a reminder, our budget is in three parts: fire, ambulance, and emergency responder levy. And the thing I'd like to point out on this slide is that, as you remember, several months ago, we switched to a third-party billing for our ambulance revenue. And so you will notice a fairly substantial jump in line item 354, contract services. You'll see an addition of $156,000 there. And what that number means is we have estimated $13,000 a month to pay Pintler Billing to do our billing. That's the bad news. The good news is that's 6% of actual collections. So the ambulance revenue has met or exceeded our initial projections. We're very happy with that relationship so far. And like, for example, pre-levy, we were about 4,600 runs a year. We're over 5,400 now. So we do expect a gentle increase in total run volume. And Leslie from Pintler and our staff put our heads together, and we are estimating that 156,000 will be pretty close to our actual Pintler bill for the revenue collected. This next slide, I want to just talk briefly a little bit about levy implementation update in three areas: fire station, apparatus, and staff. With the fire station, we do have, as you know, because you approved it, we do have a contract with LSW Architects out of Big Fork, Montana, and we have begun the design process for the new station. We're in pre-design right now. We have a couple members of that committee with us in the back row this evening. We are anticipating a rough completion time of the summer of 2028 on that project. And I like to talk about, we're in the phase now of moving from unknowns to knowns. For example, where is the water table? Is it where we think it is? What is the quality of the soil? Will it hold up a foundation? What ultimately is the height and the location of Farm to Market Road? And things like that. So we are beginning in earnest to do those kinds of survey type items, which should give us a much closer kind of azimuth, not only on our cost, but our timeline. So we're excited to bring you more information as that unfolds. Regarding apparatus, we do have 2 new pumpers on order, and we expect to receive delivery of those later this summer. We're estimating around the first week of August right now for delivery on those 2 new pumpers. We also have an ambulance on order that would go with that new station. The lead time on ambulance is 2.5 years, so we went ahead and ordered that. and all of the associated equipment. So the equipment that you see in the budget tonight is for two purposes. One, to replace end-of-life equipment, and two, to begin war chesting stuff for that new station, those new rigs. Regarding staff, we are seeking an FTE adjustment of +2 in this budget. So right now, as a friendly reminder, we run a 3-platoon system with a constant staffing model. We have 14 firefighters assigned per shift, on the way to 19 per shift when the dust settles with the levee. So what I'm asking for this year is to add 2 FTEs to move the number of operations division staff from 42 to 44. Now, we did the math, and adding 2 firefighters with our predictive analysis, we believe actually will save money. Now, I know that sounds a little funny. How does adding staff save money? But the additional staff, the overtime to straight time conversion is very effective at that number. Anything above that and the healthcare costs catch up with us, and it doesn't become a savings. But so you'll see that request reflected in this budget. So it reduces our reliance on overtime hiring. It leads to predictable recruit class sizes. We are not of the size to do giant recruit classes. We what's our sweet spot? About 4, 5, 6 at a time. We do a really good job of that. And we just thought it was really smart to request some of the levy upstaffing in this budget and not leave a giant glut in following years, so to begin to erode some of that work. We've also started the road to battalion chief process with an approximate 2-year lead time. We're talking about what that might look like. We're trying to figure out how do we model that behavior and work for our staff, who some of them will be growing into that role, that we hope to bring that to life on or about the time the new facility is done. So just to highlight a little bit of our current levy impacts, as you know, right away, we bought some firefighters and we bought 2 training captains. One is focused on fire training, the other on EMS. They do both incumbent and brand new firefighter training. We also have some new training software on board, so we're doing a much better job of tracking the training that we are doing, and that has led to an enhancement in our ISO, or Insurance Service Organization scoring. It's like golf, you want the number to be small. And we are currently a 3, and so we're still going to be a 3, but we're just closer to a 2 than we were before. The 12 initial levy-funded hires have led to 2 fully staffed fire stations, and by that I mean a dedicated heavy apparatus, a fire engine or truck, and an aid vehicle, aid or paramedic unit, as opposed to simply cross-staffing, where the crew would wait to hear what the run is and then decide which side of the garage they're going to go to. So the initial staffing is really helping us increase our ability to meet community needs, whether that's fire, EMS, multiple calls at one time, and it's reducing our need to rely on our neighbors, such as Evergreen or Smith Valley. And in preparing for this presentation tonight, I went back and looked at the data and did some reports. And I just really want to thank you because, as you know, the CPSM study documented an overall average response time of 9:42. Not great for a lot of reasons. Today, with that additional staffing, we've knocked 2 minutes, 42 seconds off that average, so we're at 7 minutes. So we really want to thank you for that support, and we're starting to see the benefits of that staffing and on the way to even better community impacts as we add that 3rd node, that 3rd station. So moving on to the next slide, I just wanted to kind of, this slide usually brings this to life for people. The top slide simply shows that left unchecked, a fire, any fire, will progress to a condition called flashover, where the surfaces in a building, whether it's a couch, a picture, a TV screen, or paint on a wall, will start to give off vapors to the point where everything ignites at once. And at that point, at flashover, our chances to save lives drop dramatically. And so our goal is to arrive and rescue victims that are savable, apply water to the seat of the fire prior to flashover occurring. And I just wanted you to see that like I tell people, try holding your breath. How long can you go, right? Not as long as you may need to go. So the levy staffing is having a really positive effect as we move towards these outcomes. The chart below shows that when someone has a heart attack and the heart stops beating, the elapsed time to intervention with life-saving measures is really what matters. That could include the administration of bystander or family CPR. It could include the use of an AED, an automatic external defibrillator, which changes the rhythm of the heart to a productive rhythm. And this stuff gets complex pretty fast, right? So I like to just tell people that a fibrillating heart is like a car. The motor's running, but it's not in gear. It's not producing any result. And so the defibrillator gets that car back in gear by changing the heart rhythm. And our benchmark is arrival at the patient's side. And so the bottom chart shows that in as little as 6 minutes, irreversible brain damage can occur. So that's why seconds count for us, and we appreciate the support. The next slide is just to illustrate that in the fire department, we purchase, maintain, and test lots of different kinds of equipment. We have experience in evolution, seeing tools migrate from simple hand tools like an axe or a pike pole to hydraulic, gasoline, and now battery, lithium-ion battery-operated tools. These tools are lighter, they're faster, they're easier to operate, they're safer for our employees. This budget helps us in several areas replace end-of-life tools and also outfit our new engines and medic units, including some of the apparatus that will be used at New Station 63. And with our full-service department, we have to be prepared to respond to those low-frequency, high-impact events, which include rope rescue, confined space rescue, trench, structural collapse, vehicle, farm machinery rescue, surface, and ice rescue. So there's a lot of things we're doing with these tools, a lot of things we are doing with these tools, and we appreciate the support in making sure our staff has what they need. This is just a quick look at what it costs to outfit one firefighter in the field. The firefighter you see pictured here is wearing $15,945 worth of protective equipment and breathing apparatus. Now, in all fairness, not everybody needs their own breathing apparatus. We share those. But every new firefighter we bring on has to be adequately outfitted, and that's another reason why we want to start growing our staff towards the levy total, but doing so in a very measured way, because everybody has to have the right gear to do the job. And boy, I'll tell you one thing, a flashlight when I started didn't cost $175, but they do today, and we want our people to have the best. Next slide, please. When I started in this job a long, long time ago, so what you see is a defibrillator on the left from like when Noah Wiley and ER was the Star TV show, and one that we buy today. The one on the left, we had to actually wait while we juiced up those paddles and we applied like a jelly to it, and we had to look at the oscilloscope, the screen, and say, do I shock this or not? Ken, what do I do? Right? And so today, the paramedics in the audience can tell you that the telemetry, the medical capability is so much better. The medical staff at Logan can see what our employees are seeing. We have a computer diagnostic help on how to best help the patient, and it's come a long, long way. But the defibrillator you see on the right costs $60,000. That unit was less than $10,000 back when Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto were on Squad 51. Moving ahead one slide. The power cot you see on the left is $54,000. When I started in this career, we did all this lifting with our legs. We had expensive time loss injuries. Not only is this a much smoother ride for the patient, but much safer for our EMTs and paramedics. With our run volume now over 5,400 runs a year and expected to rise gently, these tools get used many times each day. The Lucas device you see on the right provides mechanical chest compressions for a patient that needs CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It never gets tired, it never calls in sick, it never gets the depth of compressions wrong, and it stretches our available staffing. As you know, we respond in all weather conditions, on difficult roads, difficult terrain, and this is a tool that instead of having to have yet another firefighter or paramedic in the back, this machine just does its job all the way to the hospital. So when you look at the specifics in the budget, I wanted you to have an idea. You think, geez, how much can equipment cost? Well, I just wanted to give you a point of reference. This next slide, our existing Fire Station 62 out by the old Costco, we're able to do some kind of mop-up and delayed stuff there. This year, we have a $40,000 washing machine called an extractor that we use to clean and service our protective gear. That is end of life. We're replacing it this year. We're going to take care of some interior paint that has been deferred for a couple of years and some general kind of tune-up building maintenance stuff that has also been deferred. So we're very excited about being good stewards of that resource and keeping that station in top condition. And shout out to Parks. They're going to help us with updating the aging sprinkler system in that building. We're getting some pinhole leaks and some rust, and so we're going to put, or actually, I won't steal too much of the thunder, but thank you to Parks for helping us with that. And the last slide is just a closing, so I'd be happy to address any questions or comments you have.
Thank you, Mr. Nolly. Yeah, thank you for the report. You guys do amazing work. We hear it all the time, so thank you for that. So as you probably heard, we had a number of folks ask about Safe Haven, and I know you've talked with some of these folks already. Is that something that as we do the remodel of Station 62, can we add in a Safe Haven there? As we build for a new station, can we add in a Safe Haven there, and then can we figure out a place for budget to maybe do something at the station here?
You can, it's not in the budget right now.
Okay.
Certainly there is a grant opportunities out there. I will say that the grant opportunity will not cover the cost of what it's likely going to be.
Sure.
The chief, just knowing that these discussions were out there, did kind of work, knowing that we already have a design team on board for the third fire station, put a general cost estimate together for a facility, and it was, I believe, to the tune of about $120,000. Now, I will say that wasn't just the newborn Safe Haven box. That was an actual, sorry, what's the term of the room again?
The vestibule.
Yes. It's a locker. It also would serve for whether it's domestic abuse and some other things as well. So, is not in the budget. Certainly it's something council consider. I think part of the discussion would determine where it should be, whether it is 62, 63, 61. Those are a lot of things that haven't been put into account. Even at 61, it is a CMU building. So, if the box is 25,000, especially our construction costs up here are even more than down in Missoula. I suspect it's at least another 20,000 just for install of such a thing. So if it's something council wants us to look into, certainly we could do that and provide direction, or get direction from council. We can look at that in the future, but it's not in the budget at this time.
Okay. I can only speak for myself. I would like to see us somehow be able to get all three stations eventually to have definitely a safe haven box, but also, as you were talking, a space for domestic dispute to seek refuge. So I would fully support that. Even if it's finding new grants and sponsorships, talking with businesses around here that might be able to jump in on that, I think I like that thought. So the only other question I had was electric vehicle fires. I know that there's been some challenges in other communities with when they have an electric vehicle fire. How are we set for if that happens here?
You want to talk about the blankets?
We have the 2 blankets.
Yeah, go ahead. With me is Assistant Chief Ken Whitehair, who's been dying to say something, so now I get to chat.
Thank you.
Great question. We do have two electrical vehicle blankets that we can deploy. I don't know if the department, I've only been here, 7 or 8 months. I have yet to see a run for a electrical vehicle fire. But we are prepared to utilize those blankets if need be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fisher.
Thank you. Chief, I'm interested in this baby box as well. Associated costs, do you see anything for ongoing staff and monitoring or additional costs that would carry on year after year in addition to the installation of the box?
There is a monitoring fee, and that's been estimated. So our LSW, our architect team, has done these in the past in other places. And so I did get a written estimate from them, and they wanted me to know that there is the initial setup and install, and then there is an ongoing monitoring cost because these devices are equipped with communication signaling so that the 911 center is alerted, and I think in some cases audio as well.
Thank you,
if
sir.
not video and audio.
Thank you.
Mr. Waterman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. As we're talking about the Safe Haven Newborn Protection Act, I want to just first clarify, we're talking about budget issues here, and I don't want to say that we're not caring about the underground lying issue. We have received training. I mean, right now as the act is written, anybody can forfeit a baby over to a law enforcement officer or to a police officer or to a fire department or to the emergency. So we're sort of already, that's how the law works. I mean, there's already, without a box, that's the training that we do. Do we do advertising for that or some sort of awareness building?
No, we don't.
No,
We
we
don't.
don't.
It's not currently a policy.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not disputing that it's not a law, but to my knowledge, it's not, we would need policy guidance and direction.
Okay. So I guess I would, one, just say, I mean, this is a new act that has been enacted in Montana. It gives 30 days protection for a mother to turn over a child to an agency without criminal trespassing or acts against her. So that's already established. The box is a part of how that could happen. But right now, the law sort of says that anybody can go to law enforcement, to a firefighter and do this. I guess what I have, the largest question I have is because years ago, I mean, I would love to know how it would, the policies, that part of things work, where it is the transfer to the hospital, then who's the agency that's involved in it? Because years ago, I was involved with Intermountain Children's Services, and we had a crisis house, which was sort of designed to do the same thing. And unfortunately, it just wasn't utilized. Part of it was the awareness in the community wasn't able to do that. And then the staffing and the cost, just that agency wasn't able to do that. That house was down in Evergreen at that time. So I know the intention of it, but it seems like sometimes we have to make sure that it's the policy and something that actually the department is ready to work in. But then also where you could put in the budget for putting that into. Obviously, I think to me it makes sense that a new build might be easier than retrofitting our older stations for that. So I guess that's would love to know in the course of the year or so, see what the studies would look like, what the department would recommend policy-wise, but also what we would want to do to make sure that there's a continuum of care out there, because this is a newborn that we're talking about, and I think that the most important thing, and I know that that's your staff's and everybody's largest concern, is to make sure that we're making sure that there's a system behind that. The act gives the protection to the mother to be able to make this hard decision, but I also want to make sure that, because I know our continuum care in the Flathead is pretty limited, that we're ready to take on something like this. Because I see Missoula doing something like this. It's a really big city. They have a very robust continuum of care. We'd rather us be a little measured with it, but also make sure that we have the grant funding to do it, and then thinking about where would we want to implement something. So want to see a larger sort of the back of the house plan, the policies of what we would want, but also the recommendations from you, Chief, of what you would like to do. Because I know that here locally, we have a lot of agencies like the Hope Center, the Abbey Shelter, that are also part of that continuum of care, and just knowing how we're working with that. So supportive of it, but I would not saying that I want to see make sure that we have a plan that actually works. That we don't install something that like Intermountain did, where they did a lot of work knowing that it was a need, but then it ended up folding and failing, and that's just sort of a false start. So that would be my preference on that one, is to see what the plan, what the policies would be, and then what the funding options would be going forward. My other question, sort of around the same thing, around continuum of care, we still work with Braveheart Ministries as our chaplain services. We don't have chaplain in-house anymore. It's now a external partner. Is that correct? Or?
We do work with Braveheart chaplains. We utilize their services just last Saturday night.
Yeah.
And we had an after call kind of about that and how they were able to help the unique needs of the client. So yep, that's continually functioning and quite useful.
Thank you. I didn't know that just comes into those sort of similar sort of continuum of care issues, but again, where suicide fits into this picture, but also just some of the tragedies that happen around fire. It's so thankful that we have that as a partnership, and that there's that's robust, and you're speaking to that program. So, thank you.
Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Honor. I thought I was being on the ball here and getting ahead of this. Had a call with Jared here a little bit earlier about the Safe Haven Baby Box. But Fire Chief and Jared way ahead of me already on the whole deal. And we kind of brainstormed and thought through some of this stuff. It makes a lot of sense to incorporate this into the new build, at least as an option for the new build, because if you think about the purpose of this, the big thing is anonymity. People want to be able to do this. They don't want the shame of approaching an officer or whatever. The fire station here across the street is not a great choice. It's right next to the police station. A lot of people around. The fire station up there by the old Costco. That old Costco building will eventually be filled with somebody else, and that's going to be way in the public view. So it makes the most sense to target this toward a quieter, more residential area where the new fire station is going to go in. So I would be in complete support, and this would enable us not to have to take this on as a whole separate project. We could incorporate it with the project for the new fire station, so it could be something that we're shown and make a decision on there. I think the only decision that the council would have to make is, are we going to pursue the grant? If we're going to pursue the grant, then we would have to make a resolution outside of it to pursue the grant. But other than that, I think we should, if we're thinking about doing this, we should pursue the grant regardless, to incorporate it into the new place. Even though the monitoring and stuff is going to cost way more than the actual baby box itself. But I'm all for continuing talks when we're doing this. We're in the pre-build right now, or when we get into the actual design phase, to see it as an option in the design, so we can evaluate the cost and efficiency. I also really like the idea of having this be multi-purpose. So not only the baby box, but also the vestibule, like you were talking about, for domestic violence victims, where they could go enter, lock themselves in, be safe while they wait for somebody to address their issue. So I do like everything. I applaud you for already digging way into this, and Jared as well. And I'd like to move forward that way if the council sees fit.
I believe the funding for the grant extends to the end of 2027. Isn't that correct? Yes. So if we wanted to apply for the grant and integrate it into the new fire station, it seems like that timeline fits fairly well. And the advertisement of it, especially if it's in a more rural place, it sounds like a great thing for a new public information officer to do.
Amen.
I'll echo sentiments. I think everybody's covered it pretty well. Yeah, fully support looking at safe haven box and the new construction, and if we can, if it makes sense to put it elsewhere, I also fully support that too. Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Guess I'd have just some questions about it. So I'm not necessarily opposed to it by any means, and but I'd given the fact that there is cost to it that would be on us, not just covered by the grant. I'd want to make sure it is something that's utilized. I hate to sink $100,000 plus into it, and then 20 years later, it's never been used. And so I'd like to know how many documented cases we have in Kalispell of abandoned babies in the last 10, 20 years. And then also if there's any kind of data from communities that before they had a safe box and then they implemented a safe box, the data of they had so many abandoned babies that were injured or died from exposure or whatever, and then it was implemented and that rate reduced, or you didn't have that over, some sort of data. I'm just kind of, I just want data to kind of support the idea so that we don't put money into something and, like I said, 20 years later, it's not used. So if we.
Well, Mayor and Council, one way we could proceed is knowing that it seems like there's certainly support for the idea of it. We have a budget in front of us, knowing that the fire station, we're in design and construction, come the end of the summer, fall, it also looks like there's a lot of potential partners and resources as far as the data you're talking about. Having a work session, inviting them in, I feel like with a potential expansion of it, there's probably other grant opportunities out there as well, because you remember the grant opportunities through the state. There's probably a lot of nonprofits and things that may be involved in this world as well, where there may be other grant opportunities we could explore and talk about all those, knowing that, before we actually go into final design, that council's kind of given some direction, whether that's something that they want to put into that or not. And knowing that really the fire station is kind of already budgeted as well. It's just kind of getting direction that the council wants us to prioritize that and put that in there. And we can have a work session on that certainly here before we get too far along in design, if that sounds like a good path forward.
All right. And then just a question on the domestic violence. So this is a room for somebody to go, I guess, if somebody just came to the fire department now, I would hope they're fairly safe without a specific room that they're placed in. So I'm just wondering the idea behind a domestic violence room, what the idea is behind that.
I don't know a lot about it, other than I believe it's room somebody could basically walk into and it automatically locks and they're safe. So I think it's like in the moment type scenario. Unless, do you know anything else about it? Is that correct?
Yeah, generally, Your Honor, the general idea behind that, and that was popular in the 2010s in fire station design. If somebody were fleeing an attacker or an abuser and they knew of the existence of this place, it's a vestibule. You can go in, push a red button on the wall, and it locks you in and alerts someone. It's an area of refuge per se. They were in vogue for a number of years, and they're not super in vogue right now, but it's certainly something we could look into.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested in data on that as well. Just, again, before we sink a bunch of money, make sure that these are things that were actually used. And also the context of, I could see in a very large city that maybe that might make sense, but I don't know if in our community, whether kind of running to a room as opposed to just visiting the police department or.
Right, Your Honor, to your point, we are what's called mandatory reporters, and so when we become aware of someone who's in need of our services or wants to report a crime, we connect them to the right resources in the police, and we do invite people in and do our very best to care for them and get them the appropriate treatment. So with or without the facility, we will continue to do that.
Right, yeah, thank you.
Anything else? Well, I'll just jump into the fire department budget here. So the increase of 2 FTEs is actually in the EMS or the emergency responder levy. No increase here. there any highlights in this, Chief, that you wanted?
Just a reminder that big increase is line 354 in contract services, and that appears in fire and ambulance. And that's the 13K a month to pay the Pintler bill, which is a significant bill, but it's reflective of a much higher collection rate.
So I just jumped to another fund, if you didn't have any questions on the other one. Let's see, let me zoom in. You could see this kind of represents the increased or a decreased transfer from the general fund, and that's, as the chief noted, based off of what we see as increased collections coming back. We feel like we're actually pretty conservative with that number as well. And then here's
City Manager, on ambulance, one thing we might point out is at line 940, the expenses of those tools, the expensive tools I was talking about, end-of-life cycle equipment, Lucas, and a Life Pack 15. Those capital purchases are at line 940.
Did you want to go over the increase in the medical supplies as well? I know there was treatment medical supplies.
Yeah, certainly we can do that, City Manager.
All right, the medical treatment supplies, we've noticed about a 20% increase in durable goods. Seems like everything that has firefighter attached to it is a lot more expensive. So last year budget, we had 63,500. That's been increased 20% to 81,000. We do have about $5,000 in that line item for Duodote and Cyano kits. That's if someone is overcome by the combustible gases in a building, we can help reverse those, the damage that can happen if we don't give them that Cyano kit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 5,000. Those, I believe those expire after 2 years. And right now, we have 2 expired kits, but we have up to 90 days that we can still run with those in expiration date.
Any question on the general fire and ambulance? Because if not,
And Chief, forgive me if you already addressed this, but the line item for building maintenance of Fire Station 62, what's that expenditure?
Thank you for the question, sir. The big item in there is the extractor. It is a it's what we use to clean our protective ensembles. That's 39,500. Actually, Parks is covering the nitrogen generator for the sprinkler system, 10,000 for deferred paint, and 10,000 for general maintenance. Things like replacing there was an in-floor heating system that needs updating. There's an air compressor that needs to be updated again at end of life, some lighting repairs, and then ongoing things like bug hunters, weed control, lawn fertilizer, stuff like that.
Thank you.
all right. Emergency responder levy. Let's see here, let me go down. Fire. You'll see the 2 increase FTE there. And really what we're trying to balance is the levy is there to pay for staffing, the 12, plus obviously KPD, but it's also there to build a fire station. Once the fire station's completing, the money to build the fire station is then what would provide for the staffing for that fire station. So we're kind of balancing, you can't fully staff something, you can't build something and fully staff it at the full same time, right? But at the same time, we're hoping to have some staffing ready when that fire station does open, so it's not sitting there empty. So we're trying to balance that. we do feel like we'll be able to progress on that pretty quickly, but at least initially being a bit conservative with that, knowing that, there's a lot of benefits, extraneous benefits to this as well. But starting to add some staffing in there, you'll notice, obviously, this line item here would be going towards a fire station. I can go into the public safety impact fee. I'm just gonna jump to this real quick because it is also relates the impact fees. For the fire station, you'll see we have basically 3.2 allocated to that as well. So you add, the 3.2 plus what we have, knowing that we have essentially about 2-year build here as well, we'll have some additional revenue coming in from the levy to finish the fire station up. So you'll notice KPD, we did all the remodel over there. These impact fees have been utilized for that, and this is fire. So really, in the levy, like I said, the additional 2 FTEs and the fire station and some additional equipment. Any questions there?
I remember there was a grant for for some apparatus for the fire the last couple years. Is that just not a thing anymore?
I'm not sure which grant. I do know that there was a potential grant opportunity, public facilities grant that we'd been looking into. About $750,000 that could have gone to the fire station potentially. Is that the one you're thinking about?
No, this was a little bit farther back. It was probably an active grant at the time, and that's why it was showing up on the budget, but I didn't know if that was something we could go after again.
Yeah, there is some grant opportunities. Some of them have closed, the SAFER grant and such, and we'll be looking into that as some additional funding
Yeah, that might have been
opportunities
the
come,
ones,
as they
yeah.
come available. I think the next funding cycle is a year or so away, so maybe next budget cycle we'll have the opportunity to look at some of those. Let's see. I think that's it for fire, unless there's anything else. All right. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, parks. We'll just start going through them here. I'm just gonna go top to bottom, Chad, if that works. Is Parks and Lou good, or do you want to start in
That's fine.
Parks and Lou? Want to explain what that is, Chad? Since we have.
So as developments come in, and if the development or project can't meet the recreational amenity that is due for the project, they have the option of doing cash in lieu and paying that fee based on market value and depending if it's a square footage or an acreage, depending on multifamily or single family. So over the course of the last few years, there's been a few subdivisions that end up not being able to meet the criteria for their recreational amenities, so they end up paying a fee into the Parks and Lou. Parks and Lou, most of the funds that are in there are right now set aside for building a maintenance facility at KYC to serve the north end of our community. Right now, we have a small garage, but it doesn't fit our equipment, and it doesn't provide any place for our staff for breaks or, and it's really seasonal. It's not, there's no insulation in the roof. So we're looking at, as the community grows and as we have parkland dedication on the north end, trying to create pods where we can strategically have either fueling stations or tools to work on our equipment, change blades out and that type of thing. So a lot of the funds here are geared towards that. There are funds set aside for Lions Park improvements for the playground. Right now, what we hope is at some point we can leverage it with either more Parks and Lou or a grant or some just general funding to apply towards Lions Park playground. It's one of the older playgrounds, but it is pretty decent shape. So that's our Parks and Lieu. I'm happy to answer any questions on that.
All right, just into the general parks department revenue section. Questions? Let me know if you want me to stop anywhere. I'm just going to the M&O, which, you know, is pretty much, if you're to look, the same.
Just a question again on, as I've been doing with the other departments, I see 3,000 less budgeted for gas. Is that based on that prediction thing, or are we doing less miles, or?
It was based off of actuals, but when we started doing budget, of course, it was a different time. So we'll take a look at it and make sure that it's a good number moving forward.
Thanks. Mr. Fisher.
Can you go back up, or it's there, Parks Master Plan? And I know that's upcoming for us. What all does that include? Daily operational? Is it looking forward to some of the things that are in our long-term goals for parks?
This M&O budget? No. So this budget is really operating status quo for this year. You won't see capital funding in there because a couple things happened trying to balance the budget this year. We had raises. We've had some increase in costs of some of our goods. So looking at our cash reserves, we had to use a little bit of our cash reserves moving forward in order to balance this year's budget. And in order to do that, we had to take a really conscious look at what to present and how to move forward and what we can get away with and what we can't. Being we're at the crux of having that Parks Master Plan where it will have a deeper dive and more of a guidance. We felt that at least for this year, getting the master plan in front of council, get it adopted, and then work on funding for the next year. Because at this, right now, there's not enough money to do any capital improvements.
Was the question, was the master plan gonna outline some, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I segued off that. Yeah, so the master plan will go through some deferred items. It'll go through what the community has provided as far as feedback, and it'll outline those things, and then it'll be a conversation with council of how to fund those things and what's important in creating that priority.
Would a master plan perhaps be able to handle a feasibility study for a recreation center?
I think a feasibility study would be separate, something that could be done with funding. Because it would be very specific to a facility where this was more of a broader stroke across all of the parks and looking at what the community wants. I do believe it does talk about a community center, but it doesn't go in that deep dive. It just talks about there is support based on the feedback that they got through the open houses and public input.
Is it possible, this might be for you too, Jared, to utilize some of the good work that's been done by the chamber, and county parks did a study on a recreation center, to bring that in together and maybe cut costs down a little bit and start our own feasibility study utilizing some of the good information that's already out there?
It's possible it takes time, given everything else. I wouldn't recommend necessarily to utilize city staff to do that, but certainly, you know, the council could fund some additional contract services or some monies. We don't need, some of the information is out there, right? So a lot of that information could be utilized to further develop a potential plan for the city. It is within the master plan, which is gonna be before council. So if it's something that council feels like is moving forward, is warranted to move forward with at least the idea, a little bit extra money would need to be put forward to fund that.
So, going off of what Mr. Fisher is talking about, one of the things that I'm really excited about highlighting inside of the Parks Plan and the Parks Master Plan is this indoor recreational center, and recognizing that the feasibility has to be done. In order to do it, I'm in favor of doing it now. The time is now. And I believe there's the energy, the momentum, and the interest in the community to see the beginning stages of this planning happen. So I'm in favor of proposing a smaller allocation, say $20,000 or so, to this feasibility study. I mean, we don't need to start from scratch. Right, the Chamber's done some work on this. Communities around the state have done quite a bit of work on their own feasibility studies, and I think being able to have Kalispell show some leadership here, get the right people at the table, and begin this conversation, I think would be a great opportunity.
It's so nice to finally have an ally on this.
Well, I would say with that, staff would explore it. Obviously, if council chose to do that, we would have some time to work into it. But based off of that, we can look into other grant opportunities, planning grant opportunities and things to try and utilize. But yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned for sure is you got to start somewhere and start to create that vision. Otherwise, we're just going to be doing circles. We would need something, certainly as staff, to kind of get a hold of and give us direction as well. And that would be a good thing. So, but as of now, it's just kind of floating out there, and there's private groups, and it's being talked about in like all different forms. But at this point in time, we don't have a lot of direction as city staff as to what we should or shouldn't do with that.
I would agree, I would agree with Dustin. I think to have something in place and a vision and what is needed for the community could create some private donations and kind of kickstart something like this too. We've seen private donations to the college. We've seen private donations to county parks in the millions. I think we have to have a vision in writing and a good plan for people to be able to glean off of to potentially support this besides just the tax dollars, the taxpayers. So I too would be very much for such a study.
So I agree. I too, the seating arrangement, Your Honor, is working very well to get us all down here, figuring out a little bit more about the idea. Part of it is I like the idea of a feasibility study. I think that there's some anticipation for what the master plan is really going to propose. And it would be nice in the next year to start to move that forward, especially if that was to hit into another, feasibility study could set us up into the next budget for what those options might be, but also have some conversations about what the funding for that would look like over the next year. So I'm supportive of the idea because I do anticipate that the master plan actually has highlighted some pretty good ideas. It would be nice to see in this next year that we're taking some initiation to move things forward, even if it takes another year. These type of facilities take multiple years to be able to do, but and the master plan actually has some really great ideas. It would be nice to be able to also come out of this upcoming fiscal year with some direction of where we want to take action with the master plan. So I'm supportive of the idea for a feasibility study because I do think that there's a gravity towards the recreational center.
Yeah, I guess I would want to, in a discussion maybe when the master plan comes back to council, because as I recall, and I haven't looked at it recently, but just there's a lot of priorities in the master plan that I like. And I certainly support this idea, but I don't know necessarily that's my number one. It may be, I just haven't given a lot of thought from the time we had a conversation master plan. So I'd be interested in revisiting when we look at the master plan again, look again at what are those ideas. And me personally I know for some, it's number one, no question. Not necessarily no question for me. So I'd want to look again at what those different proposals are and before I kind of weigh in them, because I might want to pursue, suggest pursuing something else as number one opportunity. But anyways,
And just from a functional perspective, I mean, I kind of recognize that this is putting the cart before the horse in some respects. But recognizing we're doing the budget now, what I don't want to do is have this gap where we're, as Mr. Waterman is saying, hey, we have some great ideas, but we don't really have any capacity for implementation for the next year. So how do we kind of reconcile that timing? So once the park master plan does come out, we can make these budget allocations in order to ensure that we're not in stasis.
Partly, I think we've already had some discussion, so we have, Mr. Nygren weigh in on this, but, we have the 21% reserve, right? It's above our 20% target, so there, some room there. There may be some adjustments, but by the time we get to August, so we've had a suggestion for a public information officer hire. I'm interested in additional planning staff. I talked about affordable housing staff or person, but that was with the idea that we would need that for the development of one of our city parking lots. I don't think we need an additional staffer for that. I think we can do it with existing staffing. So I'm more interested now in maybe a transportation planner because we're talking about creating a traffic calming policy, and traffic is kind of a big topic that we get a lot of public comment on about. We're hearing it Woodland and so on. I've heard it a number of other places just in the recent months. So I'm interested in that kind of, so there's a couple of staffing options. There's some deferred maintenance proposals, and then there's kind of an idea for feasibility study. So I think what we need is when we kind of have the clear picture on the numbers, have a work session where we talk about, if we have an opportunity for a little extra items in the budget, what's our priority? And maybe it's a few different things that we can afford, but obviously we can't do it all necessarily. So is that accurate?
It's feasible. There'll be a bit of time between, preliminary budget, June, when it gets to final budget. Usually, a lot of these points I'm taking, and at the final budget, I'll highlight them and put them in there. If there's, a new staff person or something that you really want to consider, whether it's a transportation planner or a new planner, we should probably talk about that now. Just because the one thing I want to make sure of is if we're actually adding a position that, it fits the programming and things, and that we're going to deliver on what the council actually wants. That's my main thing that I just want to make sure, whether it's a PIO, because we do have the ability to do a budget amendment. So I've heard, like the PIO, I would like to do a work session with the council and talk about all the options, and maybe a work session or two, depending on how that goes. Certainly around the traffic calming policy, it may result in a conversation of needing a transportation planner. We can do a budget amendment whenever we want, but certainly we need to get into final. But a lot of this I'm very comfortable with allocating, a bit here or there to get us to final budget and highlight that at the end. But at a certain point here at preliminary budget, I don't know if we'd be able to just fit it in a work session without really having the context of what council wants delivered out of it. Just because, like I said, a transportation planner is probably, like I said, I think the perfect timing would be during the traffic calming policy and how that would look. Kind of like, with the baby box, certainly. So, but yeah, I mean, we certainly can do a work session right before final budget, and we can highlight some certain things. And but I think as far as just adding a position in that late, it would be difficult to do that, if that makes sense.
When are you expecting the traffic calming policy to come before council? I mean, it doesn't have to be this year. I mean, if it's something that,
Well, it will certainly be this year. Certainly, it just probably, I don't know if it'll be by final budget is what I'm saying. Because we've obviously got a lot on the agenda still. I think the Parks Master Plan's coming up. That's going to be a couple discussions. So we've got a lot on the agenda, at least through June, July, and then early August is final adoption. So it's just that window is pretty quick to go that far, and I just don't want to fund a position not knowing exactly what the goal of it will be. Because that, I mean, it absolutely could be a warranted position, but I just want to make sure that it delivers on what the council wants, so.
I mean, I guess I spoke a little bit to why I was thinking about that position. It is just something we hear so much about. It seems like we don't go a few weeks before we get somebody from some neighborhood saying the traffic is, bad on my street. I want a, speed hump. I want a this, that. And that requires, ultimately, long-term, we need to adjust our street design standards, right? And that requires some expertise to do, and kind of an assessment of new developments. We've had a lot of safety questions when it comes to, for example, the South Meadows proposal and Bluestone and the impact there. And a planner who can evaluate new developments for safety, traffic safety concerns would be valuable. I also have been interested in kind of an environmental perspective in the planning department, because those questions have come up as well. And I could see if, potentially we could find some efficiency in hiring a transportation planner who also has at least some background and knowledge about environmental considerations. So evaluating new projects and things like our buffers code and that sort of thing with environmental considerations as well. So that's kind of what I was thinking about with that position. But obviously we have other demands too, and so it's a question of limited resources, how much money is available, and where we want to put it, and what we save for future years, if at all.
Transportation planner is something I think our Public Works Department would even appreciate. As you notice, part of it is why it'd just be interesting to flush it out, what the priorities of council would be. Yes, design standards. There's certain specialties, obviously getting a transportation planner in-house, and it's just difficult to get employees. So that'll be one thing. Even if we want the position, we have a hard time hiring engineers that it is. So not to say that's not warranted, but it's just a real hurdle that we would have to talk about. But yeah, I mean, you'll notice we do contracting for third-party analysis of our traffic studies because, we don't have the time really in-house or the specialty. A traffic engineer is special to their own, they have their own expertise. So certainly warranted and certainly something other cities have. And I think it would be a good program. We would just have to kind of flush out exactly how that would work. And I think during the traffic calming policy would be a really good time to start that. But.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that PIO is a higher priority this year, but getting that conversation going, and I think it's part of the broader conversations involved with zoning.
Yep.
And, corridors or highway entrances, all of this stuff is all kind of part of the same conversation. So I think that would be a good time to bring that up. I think it's certainly a position we could use, for sure. But I think PIO would be my highest priority this year.
I would agree with you.
So I see support for at least, as we get into final budget, some funding for a feasibility study for a larger, and that's kind of a county-wide recreational facility is what the idea behind that would be, correct? Or to kind of it'll be outlined in the master plan, but certainly we wouldn't even be initiating something till after council had approved the master plan and all that, so.
I guess, on that, I guess, Chad, do you, because I wasn't prepared for this conversation this evening, but off the top of your head, kind of in the master plan, I know there were a number of wouldn't it be great if we had this in the plan, other things that would require kind of funding to explore or even begin to implement out of kind of that wish list that we are identifying in the master plan?
So there are some areas that it does talk about other master plans, for instance, aquatics. We have an older facility. Public input was they would love to see a year-round facility. So in the master plan, it does call out like, here's what we've heard, here's what the community said, and then, you know, like looking at our, like, would it be worthy to keep two facilities, change one facility over to indoor use? But it does call out a master plan to go through that process because it does take a little more of a deeper dive into that. There's also long-term planning for Woodland Park. We've talked about changing the pond up a little bit. And with that, it's been suggested that we go through a kind of a master plan because there's been lots of talk through the ages about different things that people would like to see in the park. But is that appropriate? Should we be looking at those things? But within that, within the Parks Master Plan, it does talk about doing a master plan on Lawrence Park, Woodland Park, and as well as doing it as aquatic. So those are the three big ones. And then, of course, then we've got deferred maintenance and small ticket items that we can discuss once we have the master plan and can see those numbers again of what the community has talked about and they support.
And so the aquatics would be separate from perhaps a rec?
Same thing.
I believe the type of facility that the community envisions, I believe, which is why I think the feasibility would include aquatics within it.
Okay.
Pretty extensive facility, so.
And the Lawrence Park one would be looking at what?
Amenities that could go within the park. Again, the community, they have ideas, they have desires, but looking at the space in general, what's appropriate down there. From Parks perspective, we could tell you that we don't have adequate parking to add anything down there because even a large event down there sometimes has difficulty parking. So depending on what it is, you know, looking at what amenities are appropriate in that area. It talks about the water trail system as a connection point, making that improvement. But because it's a larger piece of property and there's different ideas throughout our community, maybe there's things that are appropriate there. And through the master plan, they felt that it was a good park to go through a separate master plan and identify those things and really dial into what the community wants.
So it sounds like then we kind of have three choices. If we were going to allocate some kind of seed money towards a planning process, we have kind of three choices on where we might put that money, unless there's something with timing on any of those three that would make sense to do one earlier than the other.
I don't think that there's a timing issue in the master plan with any three of those. They were just making the suggestion because of the size of them and what could or couldn't happen in those parks. It would be good to have a separate master plan. So I think the priority would come back to council and what they felt was priority to them. I think the aquatics portion would be part of the recreation facility. It could be part of that. Could be broken out of it separately too if council wanted, but I think it would be appropriate based on what I recall from the public input process.
The aquatics being part
Of looking at that larger facility, a recreational facility for the community.
Right.
I think it's, like Councilman Fisher said, I think it's more widely received in the county, meaning it's just not Kalispell. I think the whole community kind of backs this idea, but trying to get all the entities together and try to launch something, because we've seen the private sector look at different options. They've come to the city as well, trying to figure out how to launch the next step. But there are obviously some hurdles in there. So we may be a good way to continue the conversation and get some rubber to the road.
And so for a feasibility study that kind of we're talking about, what kind of numbers are we talking about for needing to put in the budget? If we're,
I mean, given what's out there and, you know, staff certainly will put time into it as well, but, I think a good estimate, to start, 20,000, I think would be a good number to get us started in order to do that. Like I said, given what's out there, I think that would get us a start. And it would give the council enough to decide what the next steps were and start to, as Councilman Fisher said, get more energy around that it is actually feasible or it's not, and or what resources is it gonna take to get it moving forward? Because really, you're gonna need that vision in order to start to get those private donors and things. Countywide, I mean, it is the city taking the lead on it, but, somebody has to.
So I guess the question is then 20,000 towards the recreation facility or the Woodland Park Pond or the Lawrence Park. Those are kind of, if we're going to be looking at feasibility or master planning, putting funding in this budget for kind of visioning of future parks, master plan projects, those are three options. Are we still
Well, are they mutually
prioritizing-
exclusive? I mean,
Well, we just have it's just a matter of the funding available, right? So, in this budget. So it's not necessarily that, I mean, I guess, are you proposing funding all three in this budget?
I'm just posing a question.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, my proposal is to do this. Again, there's momentum out here as Mr., the community is talking about this and they have for a while. And as of now, nobody's taking the lead on that conversation. And I think showing that the city's interested in it and putting some effort into it, I think we'll see a broad coalition of people get together and continue to have the conversation. Does that mean that Lawrence Park and Woodland Park aren't, important to be talking about? Of course they are. But this is the proposal that, is on the table right now.
I guess I look at it as a little bit different light on that. Communities that do this, they are entitlement cities, right? That really have more funding to be able to do those type of facilities. Unfortunately, we're not there. So we've seen the private sector start this, right? My time on council, I've seen one for just south of Majestic Valley Arena. There was one out by the Glacier International Airport, right? A lot of private people have put a lot of money into the feasibility study that was already done through the Chamber of Commerce for something like this, and they can't get the money to do it. So I get a little concerned of how much money are we going to throw at this to do another feasibility study that's already been done in the community, and the community hasn't been able to pull it off because of the funding to do a facility like this and build it and have it where it's actually producing at least enough revenue so it's not a drain on the taxpayers. So, I mean, we've got Logan Health, who, last I heard, they closed down their pool, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that I love the idea of something. I just don't think we're at that point to move there right now. I think we have a lot of other things that we need to take care of, right? Definitely at Woodland Park, definitely down at Lawrence Park. We're going to be bringing on a new park. Now, granted, that's going to be built by somebody else, but there's going to be some costs of maintaining that park, and we've got the park line, and we've got a lot of snow removal, as Councilman Walker and I were talking about before the meeting, there's a lot of costs on that, right? So I guess I would venture to guess not necessarily a facility like that, but more of let's take care of what we have and get them up to a point and maintaining them, right? That's good before let's start something else. So just my thoughts on it.
Do we have anything on the status of the facility that was proposed north of Silverbrook?
I don't. Other than, I mean, in general, facilities like this across the U.S., I don't think the plan would be, I don't want to speak for any council members, that the city's building it. I think it, as Chad said, the county kind of supports the idea, but it's got to start somewhere, and the idea would be getting to the point where that vision's out there, where even a countywide bond or a countywide, would private donors, 50% and a bond, something along those lines. I don't think the idea is that the city of Kalispell is going to funding the actual construction of something like this, but it's just moving something out there because facilities like this, when you're talking pools for the kids, just like a football field or a baseball field, there are tax dollars involved, right? So pools, recreation facilities, we're talking about senior facilities, all these things are gonna take public dollars in order to do, and that's probably why the private sector hasn't done it, because yes, they don't necessarily pencil, but they're an asset to the community and something that makes a community, so.
Mr. Fisher.
I agree with that. I just want to point out, in agreeing with you, that even the ultra-conservative county commissioners at one point stuck aside $3.5 million for a public facility like this. And the plan was to stick aside $3 million a year until we got to a point, but then costs, inflation, all this stuff happened to the county, I should say, to where it was kicked down the road. But I agree with Jared, this is valley-wide. I think we do need to bring some partners together, fairgrounds included. The cities, this is to have something for our kids and traveling teams, and it would be a boon for private business, motels, restaurants. It could really do a service to this valley. You know, we don't have a bowling alley in this town. We don't have a lot of recreation opportunities for young kids. If you don't make the elite special team, the traveling team, so many kids are displaced. And I've given my spiel on this over and over, and I didn't mean it to be a surprise for you tonight, Mayor. I apologize for that, but it's just something that just keeps, it seems Parks and Recreation kind of always takes the lowest priority in budgeting. I get that with fire, water, police, everything else. It happens that way, but our kids are underserved, our adults are underserved in this valley, and I think beginning to, through a feasibility study, bringing more partners together, Whitefish, Columbia Falls, the county, the fairgrounds, private then would get more on board. I just think it would be a very wise investment, not duplicating things that have been done by we spent $20,000 through County Parks and Recreation for a feasibility study. So there's that effort there, and what the chamber has done, what Kyler Blades and the private group have done with their work. Yes, everybody runs short, agreeing with Mr. Nunnally, but to get everyone together instead of everybody trying to be Lone Ranger, I think it's time to try and progress this thing forward a step. And I think you'd see a lot of donations, just like Mr. Wachholz has done with the college, just like others have done with Stillwater Christian. We're just missing the boat because none of us could, I don't think anybody's on a plan to have sole control of it. I think we just want to serve our amazing community that is totally underserved, certainly for 7 months out of the year and perhaps year round. And with the pool shutting down at the summit, I wasn't even aware of that. It's kind of a travesty for a lot of kids who are displaced. And I hope we can just consider it. I'm not pushing for anything tonight, but I hope we can continue the conversation. I agree with you, Mr. Hunter. There are many priorities, right down to trail maintenance and overlays and all the things you have talked about, sidewalks, trees. There's so many, but I believe this is one thing that actually can bring some revenue back in, help sustain it, maybe not have it pay for itself. That seems to be out of range these days, but I really would love to continue the conversation with good people on this council.
Your Honor, I guess the way I see us putting 20,000 into the budget for that, obviously before we have the conversation about the master plan, I mean, that is the next level where we sort of get to have that conversation about what is the priorities. Obviously there's passion about one of those where that might be, but I guess to me is like, we are putting a little bit of the cart ahead of the horse, but I do think what we're saying is that we would like to see some action happen on the master plan once we adopt the master plan. So I do see that putting the money there sort of does give us just something to say that we are planning on moving forward with something from the master plan into feasibility. There's passion about one. I think when we talk about the master plan, that conversation, I think there are going to be those conversations about Woodland Park and such. But I think that's how I see bookmarking or putting this into the budget. Just says, then we're not hitting that conversation without any funding to have any feasibility study or where we are. So I think it's important to be able to say, we're going to have a master plan that comes out, it's been a long time since we've had a master plan. It would be great, and I think there's also energy on the council to know that we will take action in the next year on something in the master plan.
So having a budget line item that is 20,000 feasibility, master plan implementation feasibility study, something like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And obviously, this is, we've talked about it, other things, it's still gonna have to make sure as we get in the final budget that we can meet the reserves and all that, which I'm confident we will, but I'll definitely, if I can, I'll be looking at, I can allocate something like that. And I don't wanna speak for Chad, I will say that I believe the one thing with Woodland is just this idea of, there's a lot of public going kind of to the other project, right? It's more, what do we do with the pond?
Here, Mike.
Sorry, what happens with the pond, knowing that it's historically been a skating pond, and if it were to change to a fishing pond, does the community even support that specific idea? And you know, even in the planning department, that's something that we can help parks do. That's what we do all the time. It's more just a planning effort about that idea and whether it's supported, because the funding is there, but not so sure the community actually supports the idea as a whole or not. We've certainly been pitched the idea quite a bit, but there's obviously the ice skaters and stuff who actually want a rec facility as well. So if they, you know what I mean? So it's just more balancing that idea through the community and whether there's support for that to even move forward with that grant. And that's just kind of where we were at, and it just takes time to do that. Maybe with the PIO officer, it could help. But.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with 20,000 kind of reserved for something, implementation of the master plan. I just, you know, I love the idea of the rec center. I just have a lot of questions about it. It's just so expensive. So many people have tried, Mr. Nunley, I think you made a lot of really good points. There's been just so many efforts to try to do this that have failed. And so to, you know, throw 20,000 because we want to do it with, and I know part of it is that feasibility study is to try to figure that out, but I still would like a little bit more clarity on how, you know, how we're going to approach it before we put 20,000 towards it. So.
I just do have one quick kind of question that kind of comes from this. Is there a Friends of the Park or some kind of foundation system that is out there that you're aware of?
Just for Kalispell?
Just for Kalispell Park?
No, Friends of Lawrence Park was the last one.
Okay.
The other groups, the other 501c3s were project specific, so Dog Park, the Boulder Project, they were formed specifically for those, and then, well, I guess Positive Plays still exists, but the Boulder Project disbanded after that.
Okay. I do agree that I think having a discussion with the county level and, you know, working with Director Mateus and you and, you know, County Administrator Milnick and Jared, and I think there is good things that could come out of that alone, right? So I would push for that side.
How about if we fund the study with our donated salaries?
Aye.
I just have visions of Icetown from Parks and Rec, the show.
All right, we're going to continue through, we're in athletic complex, which I'll make changes here. Dan Johns, youth athletic complex, I acknowledge that. Still making sure we get that throughout all our documents and I think the electricity is probably the primary increase there you've seen through Public Works.
Yeah, and the electricity usage is, now we have 2 production wells and we have a pressure well that, and new electronics that are more robust than we have had in the past. So we did see an increase with that. Fertilizer, paint, because they're oil-based, we did have an increase in there. We will relook at the fuel. proposal. Again, we looked at actuals, and based on modeling, we had foreseen a decrease, but we'll take a look at that before final budget as well.
Any questions there? Recreation? Thing to highlight there, Chad?
So under recreation, the one thing that I'd like to note is that line item 354, contracted services, inadvertently, it was put down as $42,949. It actually should be $53,477. It is a decrease over the previous year, but that is our where our contracted services are our busing for our programs, and then Picnic in the Park contracted services as well. So there is that one correction.
Where is that
Yeah,
at?
it's the
I'm
page
in
up.
youth camps.
Next, yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
sorry, right here.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Did you want to highlight that again, Chad? Sorry, I was on the wrong page there when you were talking
Sure.
about it.
so again, contracted services, line 354, currently it says $42,949 in the budget. That number was inadvertently put in. It should be $53,477. It was a decrease from the previous year of $801. But it is our contracted services that goes to things like busing and Picnic in the Park contracted items. So we did need to make that correction.
On youth camps, doesn't look.
Really, a lot of efficiencies that the recreation staff had worked through this year, whether it was a staffing item or how we offered items. So they worked really diligently to provide this year's budget. The one thing that you'll see is there's we've done some things in-house, like printing and advertising. Our staff put the picnic, I guess that was for Picnic in the Park, but our staff has worked harder on putting our own information together and disseminating out to the public, with the exception of the Daily Interlake is still a partner in the our biannual flyer that comes out through them. So we work with them, and they use it as an advertising sales, and then we get the cost, or excuse me, we get the overruns in order to distribute that back out to the different grade schools.
Questions there? Aquatics.
You deserve it.
So the biggest takeaway from aquatics, you'll see that the budget this year is substantially less than last year. We are winding down our LWCF grant this year. It will be done in June, so we'll seek reimbursement. But the final item, which is the coating on the lazy river, is being installed as the last couple weeks. So once that project is finished, we'll seek reimbursement, but we don't have a capital, any capital projects going into '27.
The coating on the Aquatics River, that's the second project we've had with the Lazy River, right?
The lap pool received a liner, so it's like a membrane. The liner in the Lazy River, due to the size and the way it's the way the liner for the lap pool was done, we went with, it's called an eco finish, so it's basically plastic is adhered to the sides of the wall of the pool to make a continuous form, so it's almost like a pour and play type surfacing. The longevity of it is supposed to be longer than the liner is, but it provided more versatility for how the lazy river works and working with some of the anomalies that we have with it.
Any questions there?
May I go back
Yes.
to something real quick?
Yeah.
So in the revenue, we have a line item for scholarships, which is a donation. I think it's $5,900 this year. Does that go towards youth sports and those kind of things?
It would go to any of our programs, so a person could apply for sports, it could apply to after school or summer day camp. We model ourselves after the school district's policies, so we didn't develop our own. And the way that funding comes in is that we contract out a sports photographer for our sporting programs, and a portion of what they collect from those shoots comes back to the city, and we put that into the scholarship form, or scholarship fund. We also occasionally have people that will donate to it, so we'll collect those fees and add them into there. But we do have some parameters that limit the amount of people, so we can spread it a lot farther, because that was something years ago that had happened, that we weren't touching enough of the community and given enough people an opportunity to enjoy our programming, or who might need our programming. So we did revise it 8 or 9 years ago, where there is a cap on a dollar amount, so per year, per participant, in order to spread those funds a little farther.
So is that, I guess my next question would be, is that fund sufficient in order to sustain the amount of people that would like to utilize that fund?
I think depending on the year, I think coming into this year, I would say that it may not be adequate, just because things are a little tighter. People are going to look for opportunities to get their children into programs still, but make it, it's just going to be a little more difficult. In the past, there's been other 501c3s that have been able to either work with us directly or for us to redirect people to, but those funds have also slowed down for them as well. So my belief right now is that we're probably at a crux that we will have to look at other opportunities to add into that moving forward, just because I think, again, looking at inflationary rates and what I've seen with some of our programming because of the cost, where our numbers are coming down, I think by adding a more robust number to the scholarship, that we could bring our numbers back up and give those kids an opportunity to come back or participate in our programs.
Having coached a number of both soccer teams and basketball teams, I can't imagine a more important thing than giving kids an opportunity to engage in the programs that the Parks and Rec Department does. So I guess I found where I'm going to donate my salary to.
Mr. Fisher?
Did I hear you correct? Overall, are your numbers coming down? Or just
Like after school. So the state has been very active in funding opportunities for daycare facilities. So we've seen a couple new ones pop up in the community. So their opportunities their hours are a lot longer than ours, because we're in the school, and so we have to abide by the hours or the time slot that we're given. So we've seen kind of a decline with that, but I also see that it's been holding steady this year as well. So again, you look at soccer, our spring soccer, the participant levels are through the roof. I mean, we're at the point we're capping some things just because we either don't have field space for them or gym time for them. So it's a good thing, but it kind of goes back into the facility thing. School district only has so much time to give as well. So we're starting to cap those, but our summer camp program, I think we're at 80 people per day, but we can be up to 100. During COVID, we were 110, 120, a little too much, but it was a filling a need to the community at the time. I think that, we hope to, as we get closer to our first day, that number will come back up, but 20 participants is a void that we can fill, and it's a little less than what it's been in the past.
Will you do me a favor? You love your trails, right?
Mm-hmm.
You love your parks, right?
Yeah,
You love your recreation that you provide for kids, right?
correct.
Overall, what would you rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 10 on your service to the community, on all the above, from parks, caring for parks, proper maintenance of parks, recreation to all? What would you give yourself a number with your current budgeting? An honest, from the director, number, how would you rate yourself? Sorry, everybody.
That's a hard question.
Wow. I think I have a short leash here. I guess,
Really?
I mean, I think that we can always do better. I think there's always voids in everything that we do, but it comes down to funding and opportunities. And again, my staff, I always are we doing things the most efficiently? Can we look at ways to reduce things? So I think there is opportunities to serve more of the community, provide more programming, provide maybe better snow plowing or better maintenance of parks. But again, we try to take the comments, we kind of try to reflect over the years. We try to look at efficiencies that we can do, but at the end of the day, sometimes it just comes down to money. And we try to reflect every year, like, how did this work and what can we do better? What does the community see? Sometimes we can get narrow focused and, we know the athletic complex, it is a premier facility. We keep it that way, but sometimes you can lose sight of a park. And so doing a reset during the winter, realizing that what the community's input is and doing a reset and then moving forward. This year, hats off to the field staff. They're working diligently on getting the areas that reseeded that haven't been reseeded in years. The grass just simply was too compacted, or soils were too compacted. So they're really trying to put an effort in and trying to get ahead of the curve. We had a mild winter, so hats off to them that they're on top of it. So I think through and through, my entire staff feels, there's a sense of pride and they don't want to let the community down. But sometimes when you look at, funding, you can't, get it to that next level, but we try to do the best with what we have.
I did not hear a number, sir.
10.
Okay, I'll drop it.
I guess, forgive me if you address this with Mr. Leffridge's question, but on the scholarship, so with the master plan, we talked about maybe doing a roundup proposal with people doing registration and stuff. Was that something that do we need the master plan completed before moving forward on that, or is that something we can implement or have implemented already, or when people register online, giving the option to round up to provide money for a scholarship?
I think that would be a policy thing from council to do. I don't know if there's implications that legally we have to worry about, but I think ultimately we would need council's approval to add a box. I know as far as our software goes, I'm confident we could do that, but we just need the backing of council and making sure legal's comfortable.
I mean, I remember when we had that discussion, there was fairly broad support of doing that with the master plan discussion. And I'd like to see it implemented as quickly as possible. So if we need to have a work session to get it moving to adopt the policy or whatever we need to do. As long as there's agreement, I would like to move forward so we can get that in place as soon as possible.
That could be like a super quick 5-minute resolution that we put into our next council meeting.
Yeah,
On the consent agenda.
whatever.
Sorry, did I hear, so that was like a roundup provision, like when you go somewhere and it's like Roundup for Children for Hunger or something like
Yeah,
that? Okay.
voluntary, yep.
Yeah, I obviously wasn't in this seat at that time. I'll just make sure it's not some legal reason why not a municipality can or can't do that, but I'll take a look into that, and if it looks like it's something that's feasible for us to do, and certainly, I can look at.
Yeah, it wouldn't necessarily be like a cents thing, like round up to the nearest dollar. I mean, whether it's like giving them the option of put in the amount you want of what you'd like to add for a scholarship, or maybe give options, 5, 10, 20, whatever. Some options, yeah.
All right. Anything else on the aquatics facility or to the Parkline Trail? It's one FTE for the maintenance. A lot of changes. Move on to forestry. One thing I will say in addition to the score that you don't see, that's parks, especially Chad and Fred spend a lot, is new development reviews, which I know council hears a lot about, and certainly that process takes a lot of their time. They have to deal with that as well as, obviously managing all these programs. So hats off to them, and we are working through some changes in that regard that will be before the council, but, it's just the amount of knowledge that goes into just the landscaping and the trees and the tree species and all these types of things and the irrigation and that knowledge that they also provide to all the private developers, just knowing what is and what isn't gonna work and you're wasting your money if you do it that way is, I feel like, invaluable asset that they give as well, so. Forestry. I think this is one to look at as well, not only the service that's provided, but, the ending cash, the fund itself is still good. I think this assessment was looked at back in like 2016, 2017, somewhere in there, the fee schedule, but it's still doing good. So that's nice, as you know. Just another one of those. I know we mentioned stormwater is one we'll need to be looking at, but forestry is.
So I would like to point out on forestry that when we did bring this in front of council, the conversation was that we anticipated relooking at the assessment at the 10-year mark. Based on forecasting models, we figured that we would be starting, not having a cash reserve and needing to look at either how we were maintaining the trees or looking at a different assessment. We're going to exceed the 10-year mark. So hats off to the staff for being able to do that. And I think we're going to see this fund go, another 3 or 4 years before we get to the point we have to look at an assessment. But the one thing that the burdensome part is how fast we grew. We have a lot of young trees in our community. So, that's probably the rub right now is as we start inventorying those and putting them on a 3-year cycle to see how that's really going to affect the funds, the long-range funding of this, of forestry.
Developer trees. Is everyone aware what this fund is? Okay. New council, okay. I think that's all of them, right, Chad?
Mm-hmm.
That was all the departments. Is there anything? We'll say that T-bid and bid the component units. They'll be doing a presentation in June, so they'll be able to go over their budgets. Those are a big part of that as well.
Just Chad, really quick, kind of follow up from public comment. Do we have signage in all of the parks about the leash law?
I believe that on the mutt mitts, the doggy disposal bag stations, there are signs on there. I believe Lawrence may have had a leash sign at the entrance at the top. I did ask that we go down and verify that's there. Typically signage, we work with we work with PD, since they're the ones that need to reference it and what strategic locations are. But I'm fairly confident that the ones on the mutt containers are still there. I'm not confident that the one at the top of the hill is still there.
Okay. And then there was a lady that brought up the trees being girdled down there. Is there?
So in the pictures that they provided, there was one picture that was concerning. It did look fresh. It did look like it did break through the cambium layer based on the picture. The other trees are past maintenance activities that have happened. They're not new. We've went down there. They've been in contact with staff in the past, and when we're notified, we'll go down there and make sure that there isn't a problem. Hasn't been a problem. Pictures show evidence that it has been. We did plant 30 new trees down there in the park. They are caged. They have wood chips. Generally, as they grow outside of those cages, we take the cages off, and when they can, survive the animals that frequent down there. So, but we did have a conversation today about it, and looking at the staff that's doing it. I don't believe the staff that we have in the last few years have done it, but they've been at least making sure and following up when the community calls us on stuff like that to make sure that we don't have a bad practice going on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry you're on the hot seat tonight. But going back to the leash thing and the public comment, so any enforcement of the leash law, that would be through KPD, right?
Correct.
Okay. And have you ever coordinated with them about trying to do something like that?
Generally, when the public calls, we refer them back to PD. And then if it's a situation like this and PD needs more signage, that's when we start, working, like, where do you want the signage? What works for you? But outside of that, we don't make those calls, just because, again, if somebody's going to make a statement, it has to come from the individual that witnessed it.
Sure. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, it is, just in general, I think a little more with parking rotations or whatever, just having the ability to drive down there and take a look and come out would help a lot with kind of some of the redesignations that I was talking about earlier. And just, the ability to enforce it would come through KPD, not necessarily the parks department, so.
Mr. Dunn.
Thanks. You guys already addressed the public comment stuff that I was going to bring up, but I also want to just applaud Chad for year after year when we go through this budget. The parks budget is the most detailed and has the most broken out line items of any of our budgets. And for a budget nerd like me, I really love this. Every time we get to it, it's really easy to see exactly what's going on and tie the number back to what it's, representing. So I appreciate you, Chad, and the budget that you put out.
Thank you.
And it's always nice to see when numbers come down. I love that too.
It's easy when it's the smallest amount of money.
Okay, manager report.
Yeah, as I stated, there will be a couple more budget items coming up. And as we get into the final, I make sure I keep council apprised of things and changes like that were discussed, make sure I was hearing the right thing. Likely be at least initially calling for a public hearing for the final budget in June. There's a process that goes into that. And other than that, do you have a meeting next Monday? The resolution of support for Safe Streets for All will be on the agenda, and that's all I got.
Great, thank you. Council reports, Mr. Dowd, start over with you.
Yeah, the only thing I had to bring up out of this meeting basically was, we were, I think you, Mr. Mayor, asked for some stats on the usage of the baby box, but it's almost like having a fire department. You don't need them if you're not going to have any fires, right? And so looking at the stats, even if that thing sits there for 10 years, not being used, but then one baby gets put in it, totally worth it to me. So that's the way I'm looking at it. I do understand. I'd like to know those stats as well, but I'm not going to base a huge part of my decision on that. It's just going to inform my decision. Thanks.
Just super impressed with the city and the departments from putting this together. My first budgeting session, and it takes a lot to make the city run. So appreciate all the coordination, Chad, for sticking around, and you, sir, for your advocacy and your coordination. It's wonderful to see citizens come together for a common cause, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, just thankful again for the staff and for Jared for leading through the budget. It is amazing to see how it all works, but also just to see the due diligence that all of our staff does. And when it comes down to budgeting, how people are able to address the questions and being put onto the hot seat and really comprehensively know how the city works. So I appreciate that. And then also just all the staff who shows up to report out on this, so that we are well informed of what it is and that the public is well informed of the process. So, and thank you, Jared.
Yes, thank you, Sid. You nailed that right on the head of what I was going to say. So about the baby box, thank you. I just wanted to call out some Commissioner Brodell's wife passed away Monday evening. So please keep Commissioner Brodell and his family in your thoughts and prayers. He also served the city of Kalispell as our fire chief for a number of years. So he is a big part of our community. So
Sorry to hear that. But thank you to staff again for all your hard work on this budget. This is a lot of work. So just really appreciate all your efforts.
Echo that. Thank you to staff for another great budget process, and it's great to, with our new city manager, run us through it. Nice and smooth. It's always been a good process, I think, that we've done over the years, and continues to be. And condolences to Mr. Brodell for his loss. Just to address the stat, I mean, I totally agree. I think everybody agrees that, if it saves a life, then, that's something we want to do. The stats for me more a question of, if there's no evidence, and I honestly don't know, I mean, but if there's no evidence of an abandoned baby in 20 years in the city, that says a lot. And also if there's evidence that, because I could see, possibly people who we want to use this may not be informed that it exists and it not get ever used, or that the people who would use it would take a baby to a hospital or some other safe way and not having any effect. So having data to say kind of what the effect will be in our community helps me to be able to justify putting considerable money to it, to know that yes, there may someday save a life. Also, just the stat that my understanding, predominantly abandoned babies is an issue of teen pregnancy, and teen pregnancy is way down in the country and in the state of Montana, so that affects it as well. So even if it was something in effect some time ago, in more recent years, it may not. So I just would like to see some numbers, to put some numbers to the decision. So that's it. With that, we're adjourned.